Chapter 49-45. Really? Are you sure you don't want to reconsider, Master Lin? Zhuang Yifun's face darkened. He believed that Lin Yi understood what he was getting at, and yet Lin Yi still rejected him on the spot. His motives were suspicious. Could it be that the kid was guilty? There's no need to reconsider. There's no need for it. Lin Yi saw the anger in Zhuang Yifun's eyes and sighed inwardly. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Zhuang Yifun was doing everything he could to benefit Lin Yi, all for the sake of the solid earth pill. Even though he said that it was fine, even if he failed, who knew if he would fly into a rage out of humiliation if he really failed? No one could guarantee that, other than himself. Lin Yi was still too weak. Lin Yi sighed to himself. If he was strong enough, he wouldn't need to worry about these people. He could come and go as he pleased, and no one would dare stop him. He was lucky this time that he managed to successfully concoct the solid earth pill with the help of the godly armament cauldron. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to leave Thunderous Plains Island. Even if Zhuang Yifun didn't kill him, he'd at least put him under house arrest. Escaping would be as difficult as reaching the heavens. Looks like Master Lin has made up his mind. Zhuang Yifun put down his glass with an unreadable expression. From the looks of it, his next words were very likely to be refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. The atmosphere at the main table suddenly became tense. Even the people at the other tables looked over, all of them staring at Lin Yi. Hee, don't think too much about it, Chief Zhuang. Take a look at this first. Lin Yi smiled calmly. A small box had appeared in his hand, and he handed it to Zhuang Yifun. This is... Zhuang Yifun took the box and opened it. He froze, unable to react for a long time. The others couldn't help but whisper among themselves when they saw Zhuang Yifun's expression. Wang Xinyan and the others, who knew the inside story, smiled but didn't say anything. Lin Yi had never disappointed them before. Things that were as difficult as climbing up to the heavens for others were easy for him, especially when it came to refining pills. He'd always been pleasantly surprised, and this time was no exception. Seeing Zhuang Yifun's shocked expression, Lu Ziyu and Li Run, who were sitting at the same table, were speechless as well. With Zhuang Yifun's level putting down his pride and asking someone to concoct a pill meant that it had to be a mystic class pill. Lin Yi could even concoct a mystic class pill, and all in less than a day's time. After a while, Zhuang Yifun slowly put the box away and bowed to Lin Yi in front of everyone's shocked eyes. Master Lin, you truly are a genius. I am impressed. The crowd went into an uproar. Who was Zhuang Yifun? Ever since he took over the leadership of the Golden Step Academy Alliance, he had purged the entire academy within a short month. His methods were so domineering that no one could compare to him. In front of him, all his subordinates could only listen to him. They didn't even have the guts to make a sound. Someone as strong as him had never lowered his head even in front of those old monsters who lived in seclusion in the Golden Class C area, let alone within the Golden Class School Alliance. Now, he was bowing to a junior in public for the first time. Did this guy drink too much? You flatter me, Chief Zhuang. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Facing a big shot like Zhuang Yifun in front of everyone, he was still able to keep his composure. Everyone's jaws dropped. So this guy was a master, hiding his true self. He had the demeanor of a master. No. I'm not flattering you at all. On the contrary, Master Lin is too humble. Zhuang Yifun shook his head. The earth-solid pill in the box had completely dispelled all of his doubts. In less than a day, Lin Yi was able to refine a mystic level 1 earth-solid pill. Judging from the quality, it was definitely top-notch. With such amazing alchemy skills, he wanted to kneel down and lick Lin Yi's shoes. Although there were very few profound rank first-level alchemists. He had seen a few of them when he was in the profound rank C region. However, even if they had a transcendent status and were treated as honored guests by many big shots, it was impossible for them to refine pills so easily. Otherwise, profound rank pills would have been everywhere long ago, and it would not be as priceless as it was now. In fact, in his expectations, Lin Yi being able to complete it within a month was already a good result. He didn't even think that Lin Yi would be able to help him without rest, let alone complete it in less than a day. Even with his experience and knowledge, he couldn't help but sigh. This guy was too goddamn heaven-defying. In terms of personal strength, a mystic ascension early phase could beat a mountain opening early phase. And in terms of alchemy skills, he could refine a mystic level 1 earth solid pill in less than a day. If Zhuang Yifan still had some doubts about Lin Yi's identity before, then he was absolutely convinced now. If it weren't for Shanghai Tianhua and Zhang Liju working together to raise such a genius, Zhuang Yifan would have twisted his head off and kicked it like a ball. Headmaster Zhuang, you wouldn't want me to stay here for a while, would you? Lin Yi smiled and looked at him playfully. Ugh. Zhuang Yifan's face reddened as he smiled and waved his hand. I'm just being petty. I hope Master Lin can forgive me. I'll apologize to you here. As for that courtyard, I'll leave it for Master Lin. Master Lin can move in whenever he wants. It's definitely the best treatment in the alliance. Of course, it's fine if Master Lin wants to leave any time. I'm just trying to be a good host. I won't force Master Lin. Haha, Headmaster Zhuang, you're too courteous. I may not be a student of Morningstar Academy, but I'm half a student here. I'll eat and sleep with everyone, so I won't make it special. Lin Yi smiled as he rejected. Naturally, Zhuang Yifan wouldn't put Lin Yi under house arrest or anything like that, but Lin Yi didn't want to get too close to this person. After all, it was just an alliance of benefits. Lin Yi would refine the earth solid pill for him, and he would protect Lin Yi. That was all. Now that Zhuang Yifan had gotten his hands on the earth solid pill, he had also witnessed Lin Yi's heaven-defying alchemy skills. Under these circumstances, he wouldn't burn the bridge after crossing it. Any mystic-class alchemist was an existence that needed to be roped in. In other words, the stronger Lin Yi's alchemy skills were, the more he would protect Lin Yi, and he would even try to get closer to Lin so that he could speak to him again in the future. Chapter 49-46. There's a saying that goes, stay away from what you fear, and vice versa. When dealing with a big shot like Zhuang Yifan, if you want to maintain an equal and cooperative relationship, you must keep your distance. Otherwise, if you get too close, you'll easily become the other's subordinate. When that happens, you'll be in a passive position, and it'll be hard for you to speak. If you keep your distance, you'll still be an equal ally, and Zhuang Yifan will have to bow down to others for anything. But if you get too close, you'll become the other's underling. If the boss asks his underling for help, then why would he have to bow down to others? That's the way of the world. If that's the case, then I won't force you. Master Lin has helped me a lot this time. I'll remember this and repay you handsomely. Zhuang Yifan nodded solemnly, and then suddenly asked, Master Lin, I've seen mystic first-level alchemists before, but I've never heard of one that can refine pills in one day. I'm afraid Master Lin isn't as simple as a mystic first-level alchemist, right? Lin Yi heard this and couldn't help but laugh. Zhuang Yifan's reaction was exactly the same as Qing Danzi's. The only difference was that Zhuang Yifan's level was a mystic first-level alchemist, but he was suspected to be a mystic first-level alchemist. Now that he's making a mystic first-level alchemist, he's suspected to be a mystic second-level alchemist. Of course, this was a beautiful misunderstanding. If Lin Yi denied it on the spot, he'd be too naive. Zhuang Yifan's reaction was exactly the same as Qing Danzi's. The only difference was that he was making a mystic first-level alchemist, and now he's making a mystic first-level alchemist, and now he's making a mystic second-level alchemist. Of course, this was a beautiful misunderstanding. If Lin Yi denied it on the spot, then he'd be too naive. When dealing with people like Zhuang Yifan, the higher the level, the better. A mystic second-level alchemist's value was definitely higher than a mystic first-level alchemist's. But Lin Yi wasn't stupid enough to directly admit that he was a mystic second-level alchemist. That would be enough to scare people. But what if they offered to help him refine a mystic second-level alchemist? You flatter me. I'm still trying to break through to the second level of the mystic rank. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. His answer would definitely cause one's imagination to run wild. Although it was the truth, those who didn't know the truth would think that he was being modest. Plus, this sentence even filled in the hole. Zhuang Yifan couldn't possibly ask someone who was trying to break through to the second level of the mystic stage to refine a second-level mystic stage pill, right? Sure enough, Master Lin is truly extraordinary. My eyes are truly blind. Zhuang Yifan was immediately filled with respect. Just the status of a mystic level 1 alchemist was already on par with his. If he became a mystic level 2 alchemist, he wouldn't even be able to sit on the same level as him. At the very least, he would have to sit on the last seat. Not at all, not at all. I'm still one step away from the second level of the mystic rank. President Zhuang knows that at this level, there is always the possibility of an insurmountable barrier appearing at any time. It's so close yet so far away, and you might not be able to cross it in your lifetime. There are already too many examples to mention. Lin Yi's performance was still very humble. Yes, but that's for others. For a genius like you, Master Lin, the so-called barrier is just a matter of time. Zhuang Yifan's emotions were stirred up, and he was already using honorifics. His mind immediately became active. If Lin Yi could really become a mystic level 2 alchemist, then it would be a huge temptation for him. With his current strength of the late stage of the Earth opening realm, if it wasn't for the accident that happened when he tried to break through to the peak of the late stage of the Earth opening realm under normal circumstances, he would need a mystic level 1 pill like the solid Earth pill. Only a higher level mystic level 2 pill would be able to help him improve further. Originally, this was something that would take a long time. Zhuang Yifan, had to put in a lot of effort to find a mystic level 1 alchemist, let alone a mystic level 2 pill. But now, Lin Yi's appearance gave him hope. Although he wasn't a ready-made mystic level 2 alchemist, Lin Yi was able to refine the solid Earth pill in one day. This meant that he wasn't far from becoming a mystic level 2 pill. It could even be said that he was just around the corner. Lin Yi smiled noncommittally and turned to say, "President Zhuang, speaking of which, I still have something that I need your help with." "Oh, Master Lin, just tell me, I will do as you say." When Zhuang Yifan heard this, not only did he not refuse, but his eyes lit up. He was worried that the favor he sold to Lin Yi was far from enough. After all, the price to ask for a future mystic level 2 alchemist was very high. If the favor wasn't deep enough, what would happen if Lin Yi rejected him? All right, President Zhuang is the most suitable person for this matter. I won't hold back. Lin Yi nodded and pointed at Lu Ziyu and Li Run. I'm sure President Zhuang is aware of the grudge between the Morning Star Academy and the Morning Pride Academy. I have a good relationship with both academies, so it's not easy for me to be stuck in the middle. That's why I wanted to ask President Zhuang to speak to them and let them forget about the past and reconcile. Would President Zhuang be able to do so? That's a good thing. I, Zhuang, am most willing to be the peacemaker between the two sides. I've heard about what happened between the two academies. It's been so many years. If it were up to me, they should have shaken hands a long time ago. Master Lin, you are indeed a sensible person. Zhuang Yifan readily agreed, and enthusiastically said, Then how about this? When the path of the tyrant is over, I will personally pay a visit to both academies. I believe that no one would refuse to give me face. President Zhuang, you must be joking. It would be a great honor for our academy if you were to come personally. With you speaking, no one in the academy would disobey. Lu Ziyu and Li Ren were instantly overwhelmed by the favor. They had thought that Zhuang Yifan would at most get someone to pass on the message, but they did not expect him to agree to come personally. Lin Yi's reputation was indeed enormous. Hee, then I'll have to trouble President Zhuang. Lin Yi, however, smiled faintly, appearing very calm about this matter. Otherwise, if he were as overwhelmed by the favor as Lu Ziyu and Li Ren were, then the demeanor of an expert from before would have been for nothing. What are you saying? There's no need to trouble yourself over such a small matter. Master Lin, you're treating me like an outsider. Come, let's drink. Zhuang Yifan intentionally wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to Lin Yi. He kept on praising Lin Yi and repeatedly toasted him. Under his lead, the atmosphere gradually became more lively, and it really did have the atmosphere of a celebratory feast. While everyone was toasting each other, Bao Zhuoliang and Su Kexing, who had snuck out with the help of flying spirit beasts, had now appeared in Cauldron City. Moreover, they had appeared in the guest hall of the town lord's office, as they had wished. However, at this moment, both of them were in a sorry state and had injuries on their bodies, who asked them to barge into the town lord's office. They were lucky not to have been beaten to death by the guards of the town lord's office. Chapter 49-47. Young Master Bao, didn't you agree with me when I proposed this plan? Su Kexing shook his head and smiled bitterly. If it wasn't like this, how would we have the opportunity to meet the mayor so quickly? I reckon that even if we shout outside that his wife and son have been killed, it'll be useless. Even if we successfully cause a commotion, the housekeeper will definitely suppress it immediately. By the time we see him, I reckon that it'll be too late. Who can guarantee that the surnamed Lin won't escape overnight? This. Bao Zhuoliang was stunned, speechless. He was the son of the city lord, so he was very clear about the rules of the city lord's mansion and the town lord's mansion. As the saying goes, one should look at the master before beating the dog. If they didn't beat the most important dog, it would be difficult for them to see the ghost that would pay for its life in a short time. Before the two finished whispering to each other, a gust of wind suddenly blew in from outside the door. The wind was so strong that the two early-stage profound ascendant experts almost lost their footing. However, what was strange was that the surrounding tables and chairs did not move at all, giving people the feeling that there was an invisible wall that separated the reception hall into two different worlds. Bao Zhuoliang and Su Kexing were shocked at the same time. Before they could make any defensive movements, two hands suddenly grabbed their necks at the same time. A majestic figure then appeared in the gale. It was a middle-aged man with an extremely ugly face and an extremely cruel appearance, whose wife and son were killed. The middle-aged man looked at the two coldly. The two were instantly terrified. With their necks grabbed, they could not speak. They could only struggle in vain, but the two hands did not move at all. The middle-aged man remained unmoved until the two of them turned deathly pale and were about to stop breathing. Only then did he finally throw them to the ground. He looked down at them like a ferocious beast looking for food, scaring Bao Zhuoliang and Su Kexing. You are the ghost for paying? Bao Zhuoliang looked at the middle-aged man in shock and fear. Then, with a bang, his whole body suddenly flew out. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Speak. If you don't understand, you will be worse than him. The middle-aged man stared coldly at Su Kexing. Yes, yes. Mayor Chong. Su Kexing suppressed the fear in his heart and took a deep breath. We are both disciples of the Morning Star Academy. He is Bao Zhuoliang, and I am Su Kexing. Both of us just came from Thunderous Plain Island. You guys participated in the Path of the Giants. Chong Mingui glanced at him. His son, Chong Lading, was participating in this trial. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have cared about such irrelevant matters. That's right. Both of us have just come out from the Path of Giants because something big happened. That's why I thought of a way to rush over in time to inform you, Su Kexing said cautiously. Something big. Chong Mingui laughed. Are you trying to say that my wife and son were killed? Such a person doesn't exist in the Yellow Class C region, especially in the Alliance's territory. Kid, you should know the consequences of spouting such nonsense in front of me, right? Yes, of course I know. Su Kexing nodded repeatedly and explained, this one also knows that this matter is very outrageous, but it really happened in front of the disciples of the various academies. Both Grandmaster Zong and young Master Chong were injured by a person called Lin Yi. It's hard to say whether he's dead or alive. What did you say? Chong Mingui glared at Su Kexing, and a huge pressure pressed down on him, making it hard for him to breathe. Su Kexing was almost pressed to the ground. He said doubtfully, You mean that Zhuang Yifan touched my wife and son? Although Chong Mingui was very confident, he still had to take a step back in front of Zhuang Yifan. Not only was this alliance president unfathomably powerful, but his methods were also extremely domineering. In the entire school alliance, he was the only one who could speak. Thunder Plain Island was where the alliance's branch was located. If not for Zhuang Yifan's approval, how would that bullshit Lin Yi dare to touch his wife and son? That's not it. Mayor Chong, you've misunderstood. Lin Yi is a foreign disciple from the North Island, not a member of the alliance. He's also not a subordinate of President Zhuang. Su Kexing waved his hands. A disciple from the North Island? When did the North Island have a mountain opening stage disciple? Chong Mingui looked at Su Kexing suspiciously. He didn't believe that anyone would be stupid enough to lie to him. After all, he would have to pay with his life. But to say that a disciple from the North Island had the strength of the mountain opening period was too much of an exaggeration. No, Lin Yi is not a mountain opening stage magnate. He just finished the path of the magnate trial, and now his strength is only in the early stage of mysterious ascension. Su Kexing shook his head. Nonsense. Chong Mingui was about to explode, and the huge hall was once again filled with strong wind. Mayor Chong, please wait. Everything I've said is the truth. Lin Yi did defeat Master Zong with the strength of the early stage of mysterious ascension. Many people saw this, and you'll know if you ask. Su Kexing said calmly. Chong Mingui was silent for a long time, and finally said slowly, If that's the case, then why didn't I receive the news, and why did I need a disciple from the Morning Star Academy to inform me? Hearing this, Su Kexing let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this big boss of Tripod City wasn't as simple and violent as he looked. At least he was obedient. That's because the two libationers from Cauldron City were killed by Lin Yi as well, so there's no one there to report to you. Su Kexing said respectfully. As soon as he said this, a terrifying, murderous aura suddenly filled the hall. After a long time, Chong Mingui's roar that sounded like it came from hell was heard. Lin Yi, right? I'll go kill him. Su Kexing wanted to say something, but when he looked up, there was no one in front of him. Chong Mingui was long gone. On Thunderous Plain Island, everyone was still immersed in the lively atmosphere of the celebration party. Suddenly, There was a strong wind outside, and a huge ghost-eyed golden eagle appeared in the wind. Following it was the mayor of Tripod City, Chong Mingwei. "Mayor Chong, please wait." A group of mountain opening stage experts from the Alliance's guard team instantly appeared in front of Chong Mingwei, blocking his way. "This is an important place for the Alliance. Without President Zhuang's permission, no one is allowed to trespass." "Is that so? Then why don't you kill me?" Chong Mingwei didn't even look at them, and directly barged into the banquet hall. His anger and murderous intent were almost tangible. He couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on people, and only wanted to kill. Chapter 49-48. "Commander Chong, don't make things difficult for us." The guard captain blocked in front of him and shouted coldly. However, Chong Mingwei didn't even bother with him. After a gust of wind, he directly passed by him and walked into the banquet hall's entrance. "What do we do?" The group of mountain opening stage guards looked at the guard captain at the same time. Even if Chong Mingwei's strength was very strong, they had so many mountain opening stage experts, and they were not to be trifled with. If they really fought, Chong Mingwei was definitely not a match for them. Otherwise, wouldn't the Academy Alliance spend a huge sum of money to raise them be eating rice for free? The guard captain raised his hand to stop them. Chong Mingwei didn't follow the rules and barged into the Alliance's territory. He indeed had a reason to detain him, but this person was too important. The guard captain didn't want to provoke such a person. Moreover, Zhuang Yifan was in the banquet hall. Even if Chong Mingwei barged in, what could he do? "Who is Lin Yi? Get the hell out here." Chong Mingwei released his killing intent the moment he stepped into the banquet hall and yelled out. In an instant, the originally lively atmosphere of the banquet came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at the ugly man who had suddenly barged in with strange expressions. Some recognized him, some didn't. They were all whispering to each other. Lin Yi was slightly taken aback. Although he didn't recognize Chong Mingwei, he had already guessed his identity. After all, from the moment he defeated Chong Lading and Zhang Zili, this was almost certain to happen. He just didn't expect him to come so quickly. "You're Lin Yi? The Lin Yi who beat my wife and injured my son?" Chong Mingwei followed the gazes of the crowd and found the person in question. He strode towards Lin Yi's direction. "That's right, that's me." Lin Yi calmly stood up, facing the menacing Chong Mingwei. He didn't move at all. Instead, he calmly smiled and said, "What's your name?" "Those who are about to die don't need to know my name." Chong Mingwei coldly laughed. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew around him, carrying an extremely cold and dangerous aura towards Lin Yi. This was the late stage of the mountain opening stage. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. He had already thought that since this person had a wife like Zhang Zili, his strength definitely wouldn't be low. But the late stage of the mountain opening stage still surpassed his imagination. This was not something he could fight against. Putting everything else aside, just this seemingly ordinary but incomparably dangerous gust of wind was already very extraordinary. Lin Yi knew that he wouldn't be able to take it if he didn't use a big move. In fact, even if he used a super killer move like lightning burial, it was hard to say if he would even stand a chance. Lin Yi had no confidence at all. But facing Chong Mingwei's sudden attack, Lin Yi was as if he didn't see it. Not only did he not move, he didn't even blink. In the eyes of others, it looked like he was scared stiff. But just as Lin Yi was about to be torn apart by the gust of wind suddenly disappeared, as if everything was just an illusion. Lin Yi couldn't help but look at Zhuang Yifan. As expected, of a super expert at the late stage of the Earth opening stage. His silent technique was even more shocking than Chong Mingwei's. "President Zhuang, what is the meaning of this?" Chong Mingwei's gaze fell on Zhuang Yifan, even though he was trying his best to appear cruel and unruly. although he was trying his best to appear fierce. Lin Yi could clearly see an indescribable fear in his eyes. At least in the Huang Class C region, Zhuang Yifan was still able to control the situation. Commander Chang, I haven't even asked you what you mean. Zhuang Yifan was still holding his wine cup and took a sip. He didn't even look at Chang Mingui as he said, "You trespassed into the Alliance's territory and attacked my esteemed guest, especially in front of me. That's not good, is it?" So Chairman Zhuang is going to protect this Lin kid? Chang Mingui wasn't scared. He still stared at Lin Yi with an unfriendly expression. "What do you think?" Zhuang Yifan smiled noncommittally. Chang Mingui choked. He was used to using his power to suppress others, but that was useless in front of Zhuang Yifan. Whether it was power or power, Zhuang Yifan was a level higher than him. What could he use to suppress him? He didn't think Zhuang Yifan would really protect Lin Yi. No matter how he looked at it, it wasn't worth it to offend Chang Mingui for Lin Yi. Zhuang Yifan wasn't the type to be emotional. But who would have thought this would happen? He couldn't really go against Zhuang Yifan right in front of him. If he did, he would be the one to suffer. After all, Chang Mingui was the leader of Tripod City Town. He wasn't as violent as he appeared. "Chairman Zhuang, you are the leader of the Alliance. You have to be fair. Otherwise, if people start gossiping about you, it won't look good for you, right?" Chang Mingui said patiently. "That's right. I have to be fair. Do you think I'm not fair enough?" Zhuang Yifan asked with a smile. "Of course it's not enough. In your Alliance's territory, my wife and son were beaten to a pulp by this brat, especially my wife. I think it was your great President Zhuang who spent a lot of effort to invite her, right? She got into trouble here, right under your nose." "Shouldn't Chairman Zhuang explain?" Chang Mingui said coldly. "Oh, that's what you mean. Oh, that's what Mayor Chang is referring to. That's simple. Actually, I should have stopped her, but Mayor Chang should know your wife's temper better than I do. She publicly said that she wouldn't allow me to interfere, and even said that life and death are not an option." "What do you think I should do?" Zhuang Yifan smiled nonchalantly. "She really said that?" Chang Mingui froze. He thought Zhuang Yifan was behind this. Otherwise, with Zhang Zili's early-stage strength, he wouldn't be at such a disadvantage. But now that he thought about it, Zhang Zili's bad luck was on her mountain-opening initial stage strength. With her temper, she would definitely not put a mere profound ascending initial stage in her eyes, especially after seeing her son being beaten to such a state. It was a matter of course for her to say such words in public. Otherwise, she wouldn't be Zhang Zili. Who would have thought that a dignified mountain-opening early-stage magnate would actually lose to a mere mysterious ascending early-stage magnate? The possibility of this kind of unexpected failure was so small that it was negligible. Not to mention Zhang Zili, even Chang Mingui did not believe it. Chapter 49-49. "I don't believe it." Chang Mingui shook his head decisively and looked at Lin Yi maliciously. "Although my wife is an elixir refiner, I really don't believe that a mere mystical early-stage kid can beat her. There's no point in saying more. Unless I personally test his strength. Otherwise, who knows if you, Guild Master Zhuang, did something behind my back? With your strength, it would be a piece of cake for you to fool people." "Oh, Mayor Chang is indeed a straightforward person. You dare to throw this kind of sh*t at me in public? Speaking of which, when did my reputation become so good? Even town. Lord Chang thinks that I am a good-natured person?" Zhuang Yifan's expression was as calm as ever, but it made everyone feel an invisible pressure. Even Chang Mingui, who was in the late stage of the mountain-opening realm, changed his expression and unconsciously took half a step back. No, Leader Zhuang misunderstood. This isn't SH*T. My wife and son were beaten up like this. I just want a reasonable explanation. I don't want people to think I'm a fool. I don't think this is too much, right? Chang Mingui didn't want to back down at all. It's not up to Leader Chang to decide. Zhuang Yifan shook his head. That's right. This is the Alliance's territory. Of course, it's up to Leader Zhuang. So what does Leader Zhuang want to say? Chang Mingui looked at Zhuang Yifan coldly. Although he wasn't as strong or powerful as Zhuang Yifan, he was still the leader of Tripod City. He was the #1 alchemist in the Golden Class C. Just like how Zhuang Yifan asked Zhang Zili for help, even the Golden Class School Alliance had to be polite to him. More than half of the School Alliance's pills were supplied by Tripod City. That was why Chang Mingui was so confident. What I say is not important. What matters is what Master Lin says. Zhuang Yifan smiled and nodded at Lin Yi. Master Lin. Leader Zhuang calls this Lin Kid Master? Chang Mingui froze for a moment. Someone who could make Zhuang Yifan use this kind of honorifics was definitely not an ordinary person. Even an ordinary 7th-level alchemist wouldn't be qualified. From what he remembered, Zhuang Yifan only used this kind of honorifics after his wife, Zhang Zili, became a mystic 1st-level alchemist. In other words, this Lin brat was also a mystic grade 1st-level alchemist. How was this possible? Zhuang Yifan ignored Chang Mingui and turned to look at Lin Yi with a smile on his face. It was as if Lin Yi was in charge of everything, and he would do anything he wanted. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that he just found out that Lin Yi had a chance to become a mystic level 2 alchemist, even if Zhuang Yifan wanted to protect Lin Yi, he wouldn't be so disrespectful to Chang Mingui. After all, Chang Mingui was the master of an alchemy holy land, and he had a mystic level 1 alchemist as his wife. It wasn't worth it for Zhuang Yifan to offend him just for a mystic level 1 alchemist. But if it was a mystic rank 2nd-level alchemist, it would be a completely different story. Even if Lin Yi was only a pseudo-mystic rank 2nd-level alchemist. That was enough for Zhuang Yifan to place all his bets on him without hesitation. As for Chang Mingui and Zhang Zili, they weren't worth much to him. If he wanted to deal with them, he'd deal with them. If he didn't want to deal with them, he'd kick them aside. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Lin Yi. No one knew how this young man, who was treated as an honored guest by Zhuang Yifan, would respond. Zhuang Yifan and Chang Mingui were both big shots in the Golden Class. And this Lin Yi was a super genius who had just become a legend. This was going to be a good show. Mayor Chang, right? Lin Yi looked at Chang Mingui and said lightly, "You said you want to test my strength?" "That's right. Do you have the guts to deal with my wife and son, but you don't have the guts to accept my challenge?" Chang Mingui looked at Lin Yi with disdain. He didn't believe that Lin Yi could kill Zhang Zili at all. The more Zhuang Yifan protected him, the more it proved that this guy was hiding something. "It's not that I don't dare. Mayor Chang, please don't misunderstand. I'm just not interested in doing something stupid like this. You want me, an early-stage mystic ascendant, to fight with a late-stage mountain opening master? What do you think my brain is made of, Master Chang?" Lin Yi said with a smile. Rejecting was a natural thing to do. Dealing with Zhang Zili, the weakest early-stage mountain opening master, was already difficult enough. Now he had to face a late-stage mountain opening master with a murderous aura. This wasn't the way to seek death. Of course, your head must be full of shit. Otherwise, how would you dare to make a move on my wife and son? Chang Mingui laughed coldly. Xingyan and the others glared at him, but Lin Yi shrugged nonchalantly and gestured for the girls to relax. They didn't need to get angry at a time like this. At the end of the day, they were all guests, and Zhuang Yifan was the only host here. Chang Minggui, I think you're the one with shit in your head, right? Zhuang Yifan's expression was unfriendly. He'd already said that Lin Yi was his guest, but Chang Minggui still dared to speak so rudely in front of everyone. He clearly didn't respect him, the leader of the alliance. What did you say, Zhuang? Chang Minggui's anger exploded. He wouldn't have dared to provoke Zhuang Yifan like this under any other circumstances, but now that he was angry and he wasn't one to hold back, it was already very good that he was able to hold it in until now. What I mean is that you can leave now. Otherwise, you'll get yourself into trouble. I'm sure you know what kind of temper I have. What do you say, Leader Chang? Zhuang Yifan looked at Chang Minggui with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a gust of wind blew in all directions. Everyone was shocked. Chang Minggui was a late-stage mountain opening expert. If he were to make a move, everyone here would be affected. If it was serious, there might even be a large number of casualties. However, before everyone could escape, the wind stopped again. This time, however, it was not Zhuang Yifan who dissolved it. Chang Minggui himself suppressed it. Leader Zhuang, I'll remember what happened today. Chang Minggui looked at Zhuang Yifan coldly, then glanced at Lin Yi. He was furious, but he hadn't completely lost his mind. If he started a fight here, with Zhuang Yifan's strength, he'd kill him on the spot and get his hands on Cauldron City, the holy land of alchemy. Chapter 4950. Thinking up to this point, Chang Minggui couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Zhuang Yifan was too terrifying. His strength was unfathomable, and he was unscrupulous when it came to handling matters. Once he got the chance, Chang Minggui and Cauldron City would definitely be swallowed whole. Take care. Zhuang Yifan's eyes carried a tinge of regret. Chang Minggui had guessed some of his thoughts. Of course, this was not the result of his careful planning. He was just going with the flow. If Chang Minggui had presented such a big weakness to him, he would not have held back. Unfortunately, Chang Minggui was not a simple-minded man. In the end, he chose to control himself. This way, Zhuang Yifan couldn't do anything to him and let him go. Humph! Chang Minggui glared at Lin Yi one last time, like a hungry wolf eyeing a lamb, sending chills down one's spine. He didn't even need to think to know that this guy wouldn't let Lin Yi go, but with Zhuang Yifan's power and influence, he had to suppress it no matter how unwilling he was. Watching Chang Minggui leave, Zhuang Yifan looked at Lin Yi and reminded him, I'm sorry for scaring Master Lin. But this Leader Chang is known as the Ghost of Death. Even if you get rid of him this time, there will be a next time. Be careful, Master Lin. Thank you for the reminder, President Zhuang. I understand. Lin Yi nodded. I think Master Lin should stay for a few more days. At least in this division, no one would dare to mess with you. Zhuang Yifan suggested. President Zhuang, I appreciate your kindness, but there is no need. Lin Yi declined without hesitation. If he was a little timid, he might have been scared by Chang Minggui. After all, there was nothing wrong with staying here for a while. Plus, there was Zhuang Yifan, a supermaster in the advanced stage of the Earth opening realm, to guarantee his safety. But if he was so easily scared, he wouldn't be the Lin Yi he was today. Oh, if that's the case, then Master Lin should be extra careful. Chang Minggui is someone who can do anything. If Master Lin needs anything, you can call me at any time. I will not refuse. Zhuang Yifan's expression was solemn. He wasn't being insincere, but he was truly afraid that something would happen to Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was the quasi-mystic second-level alchemist that he had bet on. If Lin Yi died, then everything would be in vain. Thank you, President Zhuang. Lin Yi smiled and said, It's getting late. I think it's time for us to leave. Very well. I'll walk Master Lin out. Zhuang Yifan immediately stood up. There's no need for that. President Zhuang, please wait. See you again. Lin Yi waved his hand and led the way out of the banquet hall under everyone's gaze. He didn't seem to care about Chang Minggui at all. Although Lin Yi had rejected him a few times, Zhuang Yifan still personally walked them to the main entrance of the Alliance branch before stopping. If not for Lin Yi's repeated rejections, he would definitely have escorted them to the Morning Star treasure ship. Master Lin, are you sure it's okay for us to leave like this? Master Lin, are you sure it's okay for us to leave just like this? Li Run turned around and looked at the Alliance branch shrouded in the night. His heart trembled, afraid that Chang Minggui would come out at any moment. Although they didn't say anything, Lu Ziyu, Wang Xinyan, and the others were all looking at Lin Yi with worried expressions. Being stared at by a magnate late stage of the mountain opening realm was indeed not a good feeling. This sense of danger, as if there was a dagger on one's back, was enough to cause one's spirit to collapse. Not to mention Lin Yi, the person in question, even the few of them couldn't take it. If I say it's okay, would you believe me? Lin Yi didn't answer, but asked a question instead. That's impossible. Although I haven't had any dealings with Chang Minggui, he's known to take revenge for the smallest grievance. Since he's already at his doorstep, he won't let the matter rest. Lu Ziyu's expression was solemn. It was a bit too much for her to deal with Chang Minggui, with her strength. At the mountain opening stage, it was easier said than done to defeat someone stronger. Indeed, I never thought that he would let me go. Lin Yi chuckled. Then why did you reject Zhuang Yifan's suggestion? From the situation just now, Chang Minggui is very afraid of him. Staying with him should be very safe. You can hide for a while, and then you can follow Zhuang Yifan to the Morning Star Academy or the Morning Pride Academy. That way, there won't be any mistakes. Lu Ziyu frowned. From her point of view, although Lin Yi repeatedly gave people unexpected surprises, he still wasn't mature enough when it came to dealing with people. It was probably his arrogance that made him reject Zhuang Yifan's suggestion. But now that his life was at stake, was this the time to be arrogant? Aunt Lu is right. Actually, I was thinking the same thing, but after thinking about it, I still feel that this isn't very good. Lin Yi shook his head. Why not? Wang Xinyan asked. You can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? Lin Yi looked at them. You mean... Lu Ziyu and the others were shocked by his words. If he really said the meaning behind it, it would really scare them to death. They never thought that Lin Yi would have such thoughts. But then again, if this had happened to someone else, it would indeed be earth-shattering. But when it happened to Lin Yi, he had done many earth-shattering things, so he was naturally used to it. Lin Yi took in everyone's shocked expressions and turned to Li Run. Right. I want to know if the defensive capabilities of the treasured ship can stop a late mountain opening expert. That's hard to say. If it's operating at full power, it shouldn't be a problem, but if it's just docked here like now, with the defensive formations at the lowest level, I think it'll be very difficult. Li Ren thought about it. If that's the case, can I trouble Chancellor Li to help me spread the news that our treasured ship has decided to return to the Morning Star Academy early tomorrow morning? As for the other Morning Star disciples who haven't finished their trials, please let the Academy Alliance bring them along. Is that all right? Lin, he said as he pinched his chin. No problem. I'll do as Master Lin instructed. Li Run agreed. He knew that as long as it was Lin Yi's intention, even if he acted on his own, he wouldn't be blamed at all. Moreover, this was only a small matter. Could it be that you're thinking of... Wang Xinyan seemed to be deep in thought. She had already roughly guessed what Lin Yi was thinking. Chapter 4951. The docks. Hui Yudi and the others said in unison, "That's right, the docks." And I told Chancellor Li to spread the news that we're returning to Morning Star Academy tomorrow morning. The only time left for them is tonight. Linny paused, his eyes glowing. The time and location are all confirmed. Is there anything more relaxing than this in the world? Everyone fell silent, each and every one of them shocked by Lin Yi's plan. What kind of person was Chang Minggue, a giant realm expert at the later stage of the mountain opening realm, had actually been caught by him like a fish? Such courage was truly flabbergasting, and even Lu Ziyu was a little shocked by him. But even if you're fishing, you need to have the strength to pull the fish ashore. Chang Minggue is no small matter. If you give him the chance to take the bait, he might be dragged into the sea. Lin, you better think this through. Lu Ziyu reminded him with a serious expression. That's right, so I can't do this alone. I need help. Linny laughed. In the darkness, Chang Minggue stood on the back of the ghost-eyed golden eagle and looked down at the ground. He was almost 100 feet above the ground. The people below could not detect his presence, but he could rely on his powerful divine sense to monitor every movement on the ground. Suddenly, Chang Minggue's eyelid twitched. There was a commotion on the Morning Star Academy's ship. Listening carefully, he realized that they were returning to Morning Star Academy early the next morning. That Lin brat wants to run. Chang Minggue instantly understood his opponent's intentions. Because he was afraid of Zhuang Yifan, he originally did not want to make a move at this time. Although the docks were some distance from the Alliance's division, it was not too far. Furthermore, in name, it was still the Alliance's territory, which was Zhuang Yifan's territory. He did not dare to make a move on Lin Yi in the banquet hall. In Zhuang Yifan's territory, even if it was not the Alliance's division, he still had to think carefully. Of course, he also knew that the most suitable place for him to make a move was the docks, but not now. He was prepared to find an excuse to lure Zhuang Yifan away from Thunderous Plain Island. Then he could make a move at the docks without any qualms. Unfortunately, Lin Yi didn't give him the chance at all. At this moment, on the deck of the Morning Star Academy ship, Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, and the other girls were openly chatting. There was no one else around them, and it seemed like they didn't care about Chang Minggue at all. Is this really okay? Wang Xinyan was a little worried as she looked at Lin Yi. Hu Yudi and Huang Xiaotao were the same. They looked calm on the surface, but their hearts had been hanging in the air ever since they heard about Lin Yi's plan. They were really worried for Lin Yi. It would be fine if they could help Lin Yi, but the key was that the other party was a mountain opening late stage expert. They, who were at the Profound Ascension early stage, did not even have the qualifications to be cannon fodder. Other than worrying, they really did not know what else they could do. I don't know, but we have to give it a try. This is the best opportunity. If we miss this opportunity, it will be hard to get another one. Lin Yi was also not sure, but he had to give it a try no matter what. He couldn't leave such a huge hidden danger. Otherwise, if he was really targeted by a mountain opening late stage expert, he would not be able to live a peaceful life in the future. But Hui Yudi still wanted to persuade him. She was not a timid person and had done some risky things alone before. Otherwise, she would not have rashly asked Lin Yi, a stranger, to team up during the West Island trial. It was a very risky choice, but she really did not want to see Linny take risks. Not at all. Don't worry, tonight's fishing seems dangerous, but in fact, it is relatively safe. If I can't even survive such a good opportunity tonight, then sooner or later I will die in the hands of Chang Minggue. So this is inevitable. We can only give it our all when the chance of winning is the highest. Only then will we have a chance to win. Otherwise, there is no chance of winning at all, Lin Yi said firmly. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao did not speak anymore. They knew that it was useless to persuade him, but Hui Yudi still wanted to say something. She believed that Lin Yi definitely had more than one method and definitely had a safer and more stable choice. However, before Hui Yudi could speak again, Lin Yi suddenly looked serious and said in a deep voice, "The fish has taken the bait." Before he finished speaking, a giant wind blade condensed from the wind whistled down from the sky, smashing into the treasured boat from above. Light flashed above Lin Yi and the others' heads, silently blocking the giant wind blade. This was the treasured boat's protective formation, but immediately after, another enormous wind blade followed closely behind, and the treasured ship's defensive formation flickered for a moment before shattering with a bang. Although it had already blocked most of its power, the treasured ship still shook violently, and the surrounding sea surface exploded with enormous waves that were several dozen feet tall. Indeed, it was as Li Ren had said, but this level of defensive formation could not stop a late-stage mountain opening expert. "You guys be careful. Don't interfere." Lin Yi's voice was still echoing on the boat, but his entire body instantly shot out, rushing down the treasured boat with lightning speed, rushing in the direction of the Alliance branch. "Humph, you still want to find Zhuang Yifan to save you at this time? Do you think you can escape the Alliance branch?" Accompanied by a violent gust of wind, Chang Mingue coldly snorted and landed on the dock, quickly chasing after Lin Yi. So fast, feeling the terrifying aura rapidly approaching behind him, Lin Yi could not help but feel frightened. At this time, he was already using his full strength. Not only did he use the extreme butterfly subtle steps, but he also used the vital energy jet technique. This could be said to be his current extreme speed. If compared horizontally, this speed was even faster than Zhang Zili in the early stage of the mountain opening realm. At least when he was dealing with Zhang Zili, he did not go all out. Just the extreme butterfly subtle steps was enough to make Zhang Zili run around in circles, but compared to Chang Mingue behind him, the difference was much greater than a tortoise and a rabbit. Although they were both giants in the mountain opening realm, Chang Mingue and Zhang Zili were obviously not on the same level. The former was in the late stage of the mountain opening realm, while the latter was in the early stage. Furthermore, he was an alchemist in the late stage of the mountain opening realm. The difference in strength was not 100 times, but at least a few dozen times. The two of them could not be compared at all. As expected, he is a big fish that wants to kill people. Lin Yi sighed in his heart, but he did not dare to relax at all. Originally, he would be caught by the other party in a minute. If he was distracted, it would be no different from courting death. Chapter 4952. You run pretty fast, but you want to show off your speed in front of me, a wind elemental giant? Did you take the wrong medicine? Chang Mingue's laughter sounded in his ear. Chang Mingue actually didn't need to get this close. With his strength, he could easily take a person's head from 100 meters away, but he felt that doing this would be too easy on Lin Yi. To vent his anger, he wanted to crush Lin Yi's body with his own hands, letting him die in endless pain and torment. This was the only way he could make an example out of Chang Mingue, letting the world see the consequences of messing with him. He really was a wind elemental giant. Lin Yi had already expected this. Every time Chang Mingue appeared or attacked, there would be a violent gust of wind. It was reasonable for him to be so fast. After all, the wind elemental was a rare mutated spirit root, and it was known for its speed. Huang Xiaotao was an example. In the next instant, Chang Mingue did not even use any martial technique. He raised his hand and grabbed at Lin Yi's neck. If he, a late-stage mountain opening cultivator, had to use his signature martial technique to deal with a mere Lin Yi, it would be too much of a joke. At this time, he was only 5 feet away from Lin Yi. His whole body was almost stuck to Lin Yi's back, like a shadow. It was impossible for Lin Yi to get rid of him. However, Lin Yi had never thought that he could get rid of his opponent with just speed. Just as Chang Minggui's hand was about to grab him, Lin Yi suddenly turned around and raised his hand, releasing a 7-elemental, 5-elemental killing intent. Putting aside the level of strength, the 5-elemental killing intent was already an extremely profound martial technique. Now that it had fused with the ice and mist elemental attributes, it was even more difficult to defend against. Zhang Zili's previous embarrassment was a clear proof. Of course, Lin Yi did not expect this move to cause any real trouble for Chang Minggui. That was not realistic at all. He only had one goal in doing this, and that was to delay his opponent as much as possible. Following a deep dragon roar, the killing intent of the 7 elements rushed towards Chang Minggui without any suspense. It was a direct hit, and even Chang Minggui didn't have time to react. Lin Yi was overjoyed. He was originally worried that this move would not hit his opponent. After all, this was a late-stage mountain opening expert, and his speed was terrifying. He did not expect it to be so easy. It seemed like his opponent was very careless. Of course, no matter who it was inevitable to underestimate a profound ascension early-stage cultivator. Chang Minggui was instantly surrounded by the 7-elemental, 5-elemental killing intent. Lin Yi did not seek to kill, only to stop his opponent. He knew that the power of the 5-elemental killing intent might not be able to do anything to his opponent, but with the ice elemental energy mixed in, it should be enough to slow down his opponent's movement technique, just like when he was fighting against Zhang Zili. Lin Yi did not look at how Chang Minggui would react. Without saying anything, he turned and left, his movement technique once again reaching its peak. However, before he could take 2 steps, he suddenly heard Chang Minggui's mocking snort. "You think you can beat my wife like that with just this little bit of skill?" The jade pendant's warning rang out crazily. Lin Yi did not have time to be shocked, and subconsciously rolled to the side. Although he looked very miserable, he managed to dodge an invisible wind blade in the nick of time. He immediately broke out in a cold sweat. As expected of a late-stage mountain opening magnate, this Chang Minggui was too terrifying. The 7-elemental, 5-elemental killing intent could not even stop him at all. If not for the jade pendant's warning, Lin Yi's head might have already been separated from his body. "Humph, your vigilance is quite high. However, with your insignificant strength, I really can't see how you can match up to an early-stage mountain opening expert. It seems like I guessed correctly. Zhuang Yifan must have done something behind this." Chang Minggui was more and more convinced of his conjecture. After this exchange, he was certain that although Lin Yi was not weak, it was impossible for him to beat Zhang Zili like that. There must be something fishy behind this. Of course, Lin Yi would not clarify things like this. From his point of view, it was better for Chang Minggui to put all the blame on Zhuang Yifan. It would be best if Zhuang Yifan had no choice but to make a move, and then he would not have to waste so much effort trying to survive. Unfortunately, even if Chang Minggui suspected Zhuang Yifan, there was no way he would let Lin Yi go. No matter what, Lin Yi was the reason his wife and son ended up like this. So no matter what, Lin Yi had to die tonight. Of course, Lin Yi would not be so naive. So after he awkwardly dodged his opponent's invisible wind blade, he continued to run in the direction of the Alliance's division. This was a plan he had made long ago, and he could not fail. "Humph, you think you can escape?" Chang Minggui frowned when he saw this. Both of them were extremely fast. Although they had only fought for a short time, they were only halfway to the Alliance's division. If they got too close, Zhuang Yifan would definitely be alerted. If that happened, not only would he not be able to kill Lin Yi, he might even get himself killed. With a thought, Chang Minggui's body was surrounded by strong winds, and a small tornado quickly formed. It enveloped both him and Lin Yi, who was 10 feet away. Lin Yi felt as if he had sunk into quicksand. Under the pull of the strong wind, he couldn't even take a single step forward, let alone maintain his original speed. Chang Minggui's voice drifted in the tornado. One moment, it felt like he was 100 miles away, and the next moment, it felt like he was right next to his ear. "Kid, I suddenly don't feel like killing you. If you can testify that Zhuang Yifan was the one who attacked my wife, I will be merciful and let you live. How about that?" Lin Yi froze when he heard this, but he quickly understood what Chang Minggui meant. It seemed like this life-paying ghost looked down on a small fry like him and was going to use this as a pretext to attack Zhuang Yifan. Indeed, Chang Minggui had always been dissatisfied with Zhuang Yifan. Since Zhuang Yifan would use this opportunity to attack Cauldron City, then Chang Minggui, could naturally do the same. Although it was not very realistic to attack Zhuang Yifan with his own strength and status, Zhuang Yifan was not invincible. As long as he went to the Mystic Sea region and found some people, he might be able to deal with Zhuang Yifan. If he was lucky, he might even be able to become the Alliance's leader. Really? That sounds good, but who knows if you'll burn the bridge after crossing it? Besides, what kind of person is Zhuang Yifan? I'm just a small shrimp. Going against him? Wouldn't that be suicide? Lin Yi said with a cold smile. Chapter 4953. Is that so? Lin Yi smiled disapprovingly. This place is not far from the Alliance Division. Aren't you afraid of Zhuang Yifan, noticing you've made such a big commotion? You, a late-stage mountain opening stage master, are just like an ant in front of him, right? Humph, no need to provoke me. I can't beat him. But do you think this move of mine will make a big commotion? Ha 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 ha, open your eyes and see what's going on outside. Idiot! Chang Minggui couldn't stop laughing. He'd even weakened the tornado to let Lin Yi see it clearly. Lin Yi glanced outside. He thought that since the opponent used such a powerful move like tornado, it would affect a large area. However, what he saw shocked him. The tornado was only between him and Chang Minggui. Outside of this area, there was no earth-shattering sound. Instead, it was silent. Not even a speck of sand was stirred up. This scene made Lin Yi jump. This meant that this was far from the opponent's true strength. It was very likely that it was not even 10% of the opponent's true strength. It was just like a cat playing with a mouse. How about it, kid? Now you should understand your situation. Whether you want to live or die, make up your own mind. My patience is very limited. Chang Minggui's figure slowly walked closer. Is that so? I'm quite patient. It's rare for me to meet a late-phase master like you. How could I just let things end so hastily? Lin Yi smiled calmly, and without waiting for the other to react, he struck out with a palm, following a majestic dragon roar. A never-before-seen killing intent of the 5 elements appeared. Even Chang Minggui, who was behind, was shocked. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Qi turning into form? No, Qi turning into spirit." Strictly speaking, the 5 elements killing intent was Qi turning into spirit. Although this was very rare for a mysterious ascending stage master, there were many geniuses in the East Continent who could grasp this technique. However, the 5 elements killing intent in front of him did not simply form a dragon. It had form and spirit. It was like a real dragon. Not only was it a lifelike shape that was completely identical to the flood dragon, the key point was that there was an indescribable, mysterious thing circulating within it. It was as if this flood dragon formed from the 5 elements killing Qi had been injected with vitality. If one were to carefully examine it, they would discover that this thing had shockingly formed an extremely profound pattern, the Fushi 8 trigrams. Qi turning into spirit, was simply turning Qi into a shape. No matter how much it looked like a dragon, it was just a form. However, Qi turning into spirit was different. After being injected with this mysterious energy, it became a real 8 trigrams dragon. If Lin was strong enough, he'd be able to replenish it endlessly, and this 8 trigrams flood dragon could exist in this world forever. In time, it had become a new, powerful spirit beast. Such a profound method. Even Chang Minggui, a late-stage mountain opening stage master, could not grasp it. At most, he had only reached the level of Qi turning into spirit. As for Qi turning into spirit, he had never even thought about it. Chang Minggui was stunned, but Lin didn't notice it at all. In fact, he didn't even know what pure Qi was. The new form of the 5 elements in front of him had shocked him, but in his eyes, it was just an upgraded version of the 7 elements, the 8 elements of the 5 elements. To be more precise, it should be called the 5 elements 8 trigrams killing aura. This was something that he had been thinking hard about after his fight with Song Zili, and finally came up with in a flash of inspiration. He arranged the 8 attributes according to the Fushi 8 trigrams in order to balance the strongest lightning attribute and the other 7 attributes. Finally, he displayed it in the form of the 5 elements killing aura. After the 8 trigrams flood dragon appeared, it pierced through the tornado in an instant. Lin was overjoyed to see this, and immediately ran with all his might. "You're looking to die." Chang Minggui finally reacted. In that moment of shock, he had given up on controlling the tornado. Otherwise, even if the 8 trigrams dragon was much stronger than the 7 elements killing intent, it wouldn't have been able to pierce through it so easily, and Lin wouldn't have been able to escape so easily. The wind howled. In his anger, Chang Minggui no longer cared if he would alert Zhuang Yifan or Lin to testify against Zhuang Yifan. He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Lin. As long as he killed Lin right away, it wouldn't matter even if Zhuang Yifan was alerted. Zhuang Yifan wouldn't go to the extent of fighting him to the death over a dead man. Plus, even if he couldn't beat Zhuang Yifan in a fight, he could still escape with his life. Chang Minggui's speed was many times faster than before. He instantly caught up to Lin who had just put some distance between them. At that moment, the 8 trigrams dragon didn't disappear. Instead, it suddenly appeared from the side and went straight for Chang Minggui's back. If it was anyone else, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, Chang Minggui didn't even turn his head. Suddenly, wind blades appeared around him. The 8 trigrams dragon didn't even get close to him and was instantly torn to pieces. Not only that, but even Lin himself wasn't able to escape the attack. The wind blades that were flying in all directions cut into his left shoulder, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. His entire shoulder was almost cleanly sliced off. Chang Minggui suddenly appeared in front of Lin with a fierce killing intent on his face. Lin could fight evenly with Song Zili, who was in the early stage of the mountain opening realm, but in front of him, who was in the late stage of the mountain opening realm, he was so weak that he couldn't even withstand a single blow. "I will slowly cut you to death, 1 slash at a time. I wonder how long you can last. 100 slashes, 200 slashes, or 300 slashes." Chang Minggui laughed coldly. He looked at Lin Yi's expression and said, "Don't think that you can alarm Zhuang Yifan. Even if you really do attract his attention, you'll only die faster." "Ha ha ha. Is that so? You're really that confident that I can't escape from your grasp?" Lin stopped in his tracks. There wasn't a hint of fear on his face. Instead, there was an indescribable feeling of relief, as if he had completed some important plan. "You think you can escape? You don't even know that you're about to die. How can there be such an idiot who thinks he's smart like you. Chong Mingui pretended to look at Lin Yi with pity. His finger moved slightly, and countless invisible wind blades whistled towards Lin Yi. Chapter 4954. Chong Mingui's gaze sharpened. Just as the formless wind blades were about to cut into Lin Yi's body, there was a sudden movement beneath Lin Yi's feet. However, it wasn't Lin Yi who moved, but the ground made of sand and stone. For walls of sand rose from the ground at a speed hard to discern with the naked eye, protecting Lin Yi's surroundings tightly. The indestructible wind blades sank into the walls like clay oxen entering the sea, with no reaction at all. What? Chong Mingui was instantly shocked. This was clearly not Lin Yi's method, but the work of a mountain opening stage powerhouse, and this mountain opening stage powerhouse's strength was not much lower than his. Chong Mingui felt that something was wrong and subconsciously wanted to fly up into the sky, but the ground beneath his feet suddenly sunk. Two large hands made of sand and stone firmly grabbed onto his legs and slowly dragged him into the ground. In the blink of an eye, only his upper body was left on the ground. Who's playing tricks here? Get out here. Although he was sunk into the sand, Chong Mingui quickly calmed down and shouted fiercely, "It's not playing tricks. Town leader Chong, I've already been waiting here for a long time." Lu Ziyu's figure slowly emerged from the sand. Exchanging a glance with Lin Yi, he smiled faintly. "Who are you?" Chong Mingui's expression darkened. "Oh, town leader Chong wants to remember my name to settle the score later. There's no harm in telling you. I'm Lu Ziyu of Morning Pride Academy," Lu Ziyu said calmly. Lin Yi laughed bitterly in his heart. If it was him, he wouldn't be so kind as to reveal his real name to the other party. If he couldn't kill Chong Mingui this time, wouldn't that be looking for trouble? But as a woman, Lu Ziyu's personality was extremely unyielding. She didn't want to do something like concealing her name. If he had the guts to come and seek revenge, he could come. If she was afraid of the other party seeking revenge, then she wouldn't be Lu Ziyu, and she wouldn't have appeared here. Lu Ziyu? Morning Pride Academy is such a sissy place. To think that there would be a top expert like you, I couldn't tell. Chong Mingui furrowed his brows, which was a rare sight. From her aura, he could already determine that Lu Ziyu was at least at the intermediate stage of the mountain opening realm, and for some reason, her strength was even on par with his. There's no need to think about it. I've set up the 9 palaces sand formation here, Lu Ziyu said as he looked at him calmly. 9 palaces sand array. No wonder. Chong Mingui suddenly understood. It was said that the 9 palace sand array was an extremely special array. Within this array, it could greatly restrict the opponent's strength. His mountain opening late stage strength was probably only at the peak of the mountain opening middle stage, or even lower. Originally, with Lu Ziyu's strength at the mid-mountain opening stage, it would have been impossible for him to contend against Chong Mingui. However, with this 9 palaces sand formation, he would be able to put up a fight. Brat, so you weren't going to find Zhuang Yifan to ask for help, but set up such a trap for me. You're really not simple. Chong Mingui looked coldly at Lin Yi. At this moment, he somewhat believed that Zhuang Yifan had not done anything. With this brat's strength and intelligence, it was really not impossible for him to kill his arrogant wife. You flatter me. Lin Yi nodded calmly. Just as Chong Mingui had said, he had planned all of this beforehand. He had let Lu Ziyu set up an ambush at the most suitable place to set up the 9 palace sand formation, and the only thing he had to do was to lure Chong Mingui over. This plan sounded extremely simple, but it was actually filled with danger. If it weren't for his strength being strong enough, if it weren't for the jade pendant's warning, he would have died many times already. Humph, brat, don't be too proud. You're just proving what I said earlier, you arrogant idiot. Chang Minggui's gaze landed on Lu Ziyu, who was surging with battle intent, and he laughed coldly. Do you really think that you can stop me with just this woman? As soon as he finished speaking, a gale suddenly rose from Chang Minggui's body. Although his legs were tightly bound, this did not stop him from attacking. Even though he was trapped in the Nine Palace Sand Formation, he did not really care about Lu Ziyu. In the end, even if she had the strength of the mid-mountain opening stage, she was still just a woman. The wind raged, and an incomparably large tornado instantly descended on the beach of the Thunderous Plains island. At this point, Chang Minggui could no longer care about anything else. Alerting Zhuang Yifan was a matter of later. What he needed to do now was to kill this mid-mountain opening stage woman in front of him, as well as Lin Yi, who was hiding to the side. Be careful! Seeing this, Lu Ziyu's expression froze. She waved her hand, indicating for Lin Yi to retreat to the side. Although Lin Yi's strength was already comparable to an early mountain opening stage expert like Zhang Zili, in front of an existence like Chang Minggui, it was still very difficult for him to be of any use. This could be seen from the two previous encounters. At this point, the plan that she had set up tonight could be considered to have succeeded more than half. But even so, it could only slightly restrict Chang Minggui's strength. In the end, whether or not she would be able to force him back still depended on her, Lu Ziyu. In a short period of time, the soaring tornado that Chang Minggui had released had already swept up countless amounts of yellow sand. From afar, it looked like a wild sand dragon, and the sharp whistling of the wind and sand caused people's hearts to tremble in fear. At this moment, whether it was Lu Ziyu or Chang Minggui himself, their figures had already been enveloped by the wild sand dragon, becoming indistinct. Lin Yi, who had stayed outside, was secretly shocked. This Chang Minggui was indeed powerful. With just one move, he had forcefully turned the situation around. In an instant, the Nine Palace Sand Formation had become a wild sand dragon. Although Chang Minggui's strength was still greatly restricted, at the same time, Lu Ziyu was definitely also greatly affected. With the difference in strength between the two of them, when both of their strengths were restricted, the one who had the upper hand in the end was still Chang Minggui. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little anxious. This time, Lu Ziyu had practically risked being killed to help. If something were to really happen, then even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to atone for the blame. How would he still have the face to see Hui Yudi in the future? But with his bit of strength, he didn't dare to recklessly rush into the wild sand dragon. Not only would he not be able to help, he would instead become Lu Ziyu's burden, causing her to die even more miserably. I can only believe in Aunt Lu. Lin Yi secretly prayed in his heart. At the same time, he rapidly accumulated the vast and boundless power of lightning in his body. Ordinary moves were useless against Chang Minggui, and even the killing intent of the 5 elements 8 trigrams would not have any miraculous effect. At this time, the only move that could be of use was the ultimate killing move, Lightning Burial. Chapter 49:55. Now that Lu Ziyu was holding him back, Lin Yi's move could be put to great use. Judging from how it had been able to strike Zhang Zili half to death, he believed that even if it was Chang Minggui, a late-stage mountain opening expert, he would be able to give him a good beating. The wild sand tornado whistled continuously, and it was impossible for those outside to know what was going on inside. Putting aside the fact that they could not see clearly with their naked eyes, even divine senses could not enter. In reality, even if they did, it would not be a good thing. They might even suffer a backlash. After a long while, a soaring sword chi suddenly slashed the wild sand tornado into 2. Then Lu Ziyu, who was dressed in white, was sent flying while coughing up a mouthful of blood. A silver, flexible sword had appeared in her hands at some point in time. Seeing this, Lin panicked. However, he then saw that Chang Minggui had also been injured in the distance. There was a huge wound on his chest that was so deep that his bones could be seen. Blood flowed incessantly, and it was a shocking sight. It seemed that he had been injured by the soaring sword Qi. Just now, looks like I've really underestimated you. I've never seen a woman be able to do this. You are the first, Chang Minggui said coldly. Lu Ziyu was not only powerful to the point that he had a whole new level of respect for her. What made him even more speechless was that this woman was even more domineering and unyielding than him when she attacked. Was she really a woman? That's just because you're inexperienced. Lu Ziyu let out a cold laugh in disapproval. Although she was already very strong, and there were very few other female cultivators who could be a match for her, it did not mean that there were none. For example, West Island's Island Lord Ning Shangling, whose true strength far surpassed hers. Is that so? Chang Minggui clenched his fist, non-committally pursing his lips and saying, "You can only be stubborn for a while. I've already broken the 9 Palaces sand formation, so it's time for you to die. Go in peace." As his words landed, a crescent-shaped wind blade suddenly appeared in Chang Minggui's hand. At first glance, it seemed no different from the move he had used earlier. However, when this wind blade appeared, Lu Ziyu and Lin Yi, who had stayed in the distance, instantly widened their eyes. Pung! A deep wound suddenly appeared on Lu Ziyu's body, and he was sent flying several hundred feet away. His face was filled with disbelief. His opponent's wind blade had actually reached him in an instant. By the side, Lin Yi felt his scalp go numb. Although the speed of the wind blades was indeed extremely fast, and with his strength, even with the jade pendant as a warning, it would be very difficult for him to completely avoid them. With Lu Ziyu's strength, she should not have ended up in such a sorry state. No matter what, she was still a mid-stage mountain opening expert, and according to Lin Yi's judgment, she should be a top-notch existence amongst those of the same level. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to contend with Chang Minggui for so long with just a 9-palace sand formation. But the problem was that this wind blade did not have any flight trajectory at all. It had just been flung out from Chang Minggui's hand, and in the next instant, it had already appeared on Lu Ziyu's body. How was he supposed to dodge it? Such a technique seemed to have surpassed the speed of space. The last time Lin Yi had seen such a divine technique was when he had received the inheritance from the giant electric eel. He had seen a human swordsman's sword Qi arrive in such an instant. Although judging from the aura alone, the late-stage mountain opening Chang Minggui was far inferior to that human swordsman. After all, that was an existence who could exchange blows with the giant electric eel. The profoundness of their techniques were exactly the same. It could be seen that Chang Minggui definitely did not have an undeserved reputation, and was indeed not to be underestimated. How is it? The feeling of being scratched by my wind blade doesn't feel good, right? Chang Minggui grinned complacently, using this to distract his opponent. At the same time, his other hand was hidden in his sleeve, secretly accumulating power. Noiselessly, another wind blade shot out in an instant. Pung! This wind blade directly slashed across Lu Ziyu's throat, and her head fell to the ground. In an instant, everything in the world suddenly came to a standstill. Lin Yi's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and he bellowed in grief and indignation, "Aunt Lu!" "Humph, no matter how strong she is, she's still just a woman. She's nothing much." Chang Minggui laughed complacently. However, before he could laugh out loud, Lu Ziyu's corpse suddenly turned into a pile of yellow sand after falling to the ground. It was a yellow sand clone. Not only did this turn of events stun Chang Minggui, even Lin Yi could not react for a moment. He was not far from Lu Ziyu's position, but even he had not sensed when Lu Ziyu had changed into a yellow sand clone. The technique itself was not very shocking, but to be able to use it to such a flawless degree, Lu Ziyu could be said to be the first person Lin Yi had ever seen. Pooh! Lu Ziyu suddenly appeared behind Chang Mingwei, and at the same time, her sword pierced through his chest. Chang Mingwei's expression immediately became more and more shocked. He stared blankly at the bloody blade that had pierced through his chest, his face filled with disbelief. Lin Yi, too, felt that it was inconceivable. Lu Ziyu had given others the impression that she was very open and unrestrained before, but from the moment she silently created the yellow sand clones to the moment she silently appeared behind Chang Mingwei, her entire fighting style had completely changed. She was no longer as forceful and domineering as before, but more like an assassin who took an unconventional path. It's too early for you to say stupid words like that. Lu Ziyu's breathing was slightly heavy. The previous set of movements could be said to be as smooth as flowing water, although it was not as amazing as the opponent's instantaneous wind blades to be able to do it so flawlessly, especially to deceive someone like Chang Mingwei. The amount of physical strength exhausted was practically an astronomical figure. Moreover, the first wind blade had left behind a bone-deep wound. To be able to pierce through Chang Mingwei's chest with a single strike was already the result of Lu Ziyu giving it her all. Earlier, even with the help of the Nine Palaces sand formation, she had still been suppressed by her opponent. Now that she was fighting for her life, this was Lu Ziyu's true strength. Is that so? Chang Mingwei did not collapse after being struck by this sword. Instead, his aura instantly became even more explosive and powerful. Gusts of wind that could be seen by the naked eye were continuously emitted from his body, and then they quickly wrapped around Lu Ziyu, who was behind him. These gusts of wind were like invisible iron chains, tightly binding Lu Ziyu's entire body and suspending her in midair. Lu Ziyu's face immediately flushed red. Right now, not only was she unable to move, the key point was that one of the gusts of wind had strangled her throat, and she was completely suffocated. The situation had reversed in the blink of an eye. Although Lu Ziyu's flexible sword was still stuck in Chang Mingwei's body, with the heaven-defying vitality of a late-stage mountain-splitting giant, this sword would at most injure him, and it was impossible for it to kill him. On the contrary, Lu Ziyu was currently in imminent danger. She was not only suffocating from being strangled, what was even more dangerous was that any random wind blade from Chang Mingwei would be able to take her life. She no longer had any strength to resist. Chapter 49:56. But before Chang Mingwei could act, Lin Yi suddenly roared, "Lightning burial!" As he spoke, a massive pillar of lightning descended from the sky, instantly striking Chang Mingwei's head. As a late-stage mountain opening expert, Chang Mingwei had no chance to react at all. The speed of lightning was the limit of the natural world. To a certain extent, it was the same as the wind blades he had just unleashed. Others could not dodge his wind blades, so he naturally could not dodge Lin Yi's lightning burial. As the lightning burial entered his body, Chang Mingwei's entire body convulsed violently from the electricity. The layers of wind entangling Lu Ziyu lost control, allowing Lu Ziyu to regain his freedom and a chance to breathe. "I've finally made it in time." Lin Yi watched this scene with lingering fear and let out a long breath. This time, the power of the lightning burial had reached the limit of what he could control. It was even stronger than when he had used it against Zhang Zili last time. If not for this, he suspected that it would not have any effect on Chang Mingwei at all. Unlike last time when Zhuang Yifan had dispelled it, this lightning burial lasted for several breaths of time. The blinding light from the lightning illuminated the surrounding several kilometers as if it was daytime. seeing Chang Mingui convulsing within the massive pillar of lightning, Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu looked at each other with lingering fear. There should be no problem now, right? However, before the two of them could relax, Chang Mingui suddenly let out a hysterical roar from within the lightning barrier. Fierce winds suddenly rose within a radius of several dozen kilometers, whistling towards Chang Mingui from all directions. Under the incomparably fierce winds, the giant pillar of lightning was actually sliced into pieces, and the lightning barrier was forcibly disintegrated into nothingness. What a troublesome guy! Lin Yi's heart beat wildly. This lightning barrier was the limit of what he could do, but it had still been forcefully disintegrated by someone like this. Were late-stage mountain opening magnates all this freakish? In reality, Lin Yi had never thought that he would be able to kill Chang Mingui with just a single lightning barrier. However, he wanted to at least leave enough damage to Chang Mingui. Who would have thought that Chang Mingui would be able to disintegrate his attack? Although Zhuang Yifan had dealt with the thunder barrier much more easily than Chang Mingui, he was still an earth creation late-stage master. Lin Yi wouldn't be surprised no matter what he did. However, Chang Mingui was able to do it as well. This was a huge blow to him. In the end, he was still too weak. You have to be careful. This guy is already completely infuriated, and he might vent his anger on you. Lu Ziyu reminded in a deep voice. Yes, Lin Yi nodded. Even if Lu Ziyu was injured, he was still a late-stage mountain opening expert. He wouldn't be taken care of so easily, and the lightning barrier just now was the main cause of Chang Mingui's anger. Lin Yi guessed that if he was in Chang Mingui's shoes, he would most likely vent his anger on him. On this side, Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu acted as if they were facing a great enemy. On the other side, Chang Mingui, who had suffered a loss, didn't go berserk like they had expected. Instead, he whistled and suddenly rose into the air. Immediately, a huge shadow suddenly appeared under his feet. It was his flying mount, Ghost-Eyed Golden Eagle. Seeing this, Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be stunned. Could it be that this guy was preparing to fight in the air? A late-stage mountain opening expert actually used this kind of method. He was too shameless. However, unexpectedly, Chang Mingui only glanced at the two of them viciously. The ghost-eyed golden eagle quickly rose into the clouds and disappeared, leaving directly. The battle ended too suddenly. Lu Ziyu didn't react for a moment and looked at Lin Yi blankly. What a pity! Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. He had already guessed the reason for Chang Mingui's sudden departure, because this was the most crucial part of his plan. If he had succeeded, Chang Mingui would really have died here tonight. However, such a vicious and domineering guy had actually turned around and fled without hesitation when he sensed that something was wrong. It really made people speechless. After all, Chang Mingui wasn't a brainless idiot. He was only rough and arrogant on the surface, but when it came to a crucial moment, he definitely wouldn't do something stupid. It was the same at the banquet, and it was the same now. Zhuang Yifan suddenly appeared in front of the two of them and said to Lin Yi with a face full of concern, "Master Lin, I came a step too late and startled you. Are your injuries serious?" Lu Ziyu suddenly understood. So it was this person who had come. No wonder Chang Mingui had suddenly fled. If he hadn't fled, he really would have died here tonight. With Zhuang Yifan's strength, if he really wanted to kill him, there was no way he could have survived. "Oh, it's nothing." Lin Yi shook his head. "I'm really sorry. I was just about to go into seclusion to take the solid earth pill. I only noticed something strange just now. I really didn't think that Chang Mingui would be so daring as to openly attack Master Lin in the Alliance's territory. If he hadn't run away so quickly, I would have made sure his blood would have been spilled." Zhuang Yifan said, a little embarrassed. "Headmaster Zhuang, there's no need to blame yourself. I wasn't seriously injured, and it happened so suddenly. It's normal for him to escape. Although he said that, Lin Yi's expression was a little thought-provoking. No, no. For something like this to happen to Master Lin in the Alliance's territory, no matter what, as the headmaster of the Alliance, I cannot absolve myself from the blame. Looks like the guards should be the ones to reorganize themselves. They didn't react at all when something like this happened. What a bunch of good-for-nothings. Zhuang Yifan couldn't help but vent his anger. Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu looked at each other without saying anything. From the time they had fought Chang Mingue until now, it had already been half the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. In the end, there were so many mountain opening stage experts in the Alliance's territory, and not a single one of them had rushed over. It was a little unreasonable. How about this? Master Lin, you two follow me to the Alliance's division. There are the best doctors in the Alliance there. Your injuries can't be delayed, Zhuang Yifan suggested. That won't be necessary. I also know a bit of medicine. It's more than enough to treat our injuries. Lin Yi waved his hand and refused. Oh, I didn't think that you, Master Lin, are also a medical expert. Zhuang Yifan paused when he heard that, and then slapped his head in realization. Hey, look at my memory. Master Zhang Liju isn't just a pill god. He's also the top medical saint on Sky Class Island. As his disciple, Master Lin is naturally skilled in medicine. Ha! If there's nothing else, I'll go treat Aunt Lu's injuries first. Linny smiled. Right. Treating your injuries is more important. I'll send you off. As soon as Zhuang Yifan finished speaking, he immediately used his true qi to envelop Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu, sending them back to the Morning Star Academy's treasured ship in the blink of an eye. Chapter 4957. Chairman Zhuang, then I won't be sending you off. Lin Yi bade farewell to Zhuang Yifan, indicating for the three girls to calm down. Then he supported Lu Ziyu into a specialized recovery room. After Lin Yi had Lu Ziyu sit down, he immediately channeled essential qi from his back to treat her injuries. At the same time, he was also treating his own injuries. Both of their injuries were not light, especially Lu Ziyu, who had expended a large amount of vital energy in addition to her injuries. Right now, she was in a rather weak state. Your essential qi can actually treat people's injuries. Lu Ziyu could sense that wherever Lin Yi's essential qi passed through, her injuries would rapidly recover. She could not help but be astonished. She had never seen such a fast recovery rate before. Yes, my essential qi is rather unique. Lin Yi nodded. Originally, such a secret could not be casually revealed to outsiders, but after tonight's battle, if he still treated Lu Ziyu as an outsider, he would be too heartless. Just because of a sudden request of his, Lu Ziyu had risked her life to engage in a life-and-death battle with Chang Mingue, who was much stronger than her. From this moment onwards, Lin Yi had already treated her as a true senior, a senior whom he could entrust his back to. You're really an extraordinary person. Lu Ziyu could not help but smile. Then she changed the topic and said, the final step of your plan just now should have been for Zhuang Yifan to kill Chang Mingue, right? That's right. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. Lin Yi smiled bitterly, feeling a little dispirited. From luring the enemy to setting up the formation, everything had progressed perfectly. However, it was clear that it was not enough to kill Chang Mingue. Whether this plan could succeed or not depended on the final step. It all depended on whether Zhuang Yifan would make a move in time. Actually, everything that Lin Yi had planned before was for Zhuang Yifan to make a move. Even the location of the ambush was not randomly chosen. It could not be too far from the Alliance branch, as that would be beyond the range of Zhuang Yifan's divine sense. However, It could not be too close to the Alliance branch, as that would prevent Chang Mingui from giving up on the chase. Only the location that he had chosen was just right. Logically speaking, with Chang Mingui and Lu Ziyu fighting at the ambush point for so long, the commotion should have been world-shaking, so it was impossible for the Alliance branch to not notice it at all. Unfortunately, Zhuang Yifan still arrived late, allowing Chang Mingui to escape. After all, Zhuang Yifan is no ordinary person. It won't be easy to use him to kill someone. Lu Ziyu also felt that it was a pity. Although the reason that Zhuang Yifan gave was reasonable, both she and Lin Yi did not think that he would be so slow. If they guessed correctly, Zhuang Yifan must have done it on purpose. Yes, I thought that a person of power like him would put profit first, and would most likely take this opportunity to take down Chang Mingui and take control of Cauldron City. I didn't think that he would be unmoved. It is really hard to guess the thoughts of such a big shot. Lin Yi sighed. In his opinion, the alchemy ability that he had displayed before was enough for Zhuang Yifan to try his best to rope him in, especially when he had leaked the news that he was trying to break through to Mystic second-level alchemist. If he was in Zhuang Yifan's shoes, he would definitely take this opportunity to take down Chang Mingui and take control of Cauldron City. At the same time, he would be moved to tears. This was killing two birds with one stone. How could Zhuang Yifan not take it? What he didn't know was that he had been tricked by himself. If he was just a mystic first-level alchemist, Zhuang Yifan might have really made a move. However, he was now a mystic second-level alchemist in name, which made Zhuang Yifan give up on the idea. A future mystic second-level alchemist, with Zhuang Yifan's current strength, was bound to him no matter what. If he wanted to have a closer relationship with Lin Yi, he obviously couldn't be the only one asking for help from Lin Yi. Conversely, Zhuang Yifan had to have something to ask of him as well. Both of them had value to each other. Only with this kind of benefit could their relationship be stable. That was why he purposely left Chang Mingui as a threat to Lin Yi. This was, in a sense, raising a bandit to strengthen himself. As long as Chang Mingui appeared once, his position in Lin Yi's heart would increase. The bottom line was that Lin Yi didn't die. This was a profitable business. Zhuang Yifan is a very shrewd person. You should be more careful when dealing with him in the future. Although you're a mystic first-level alchemist, the difference in strength between you and him is too great. It's easy to get into trouble. Lu Ziyu reminded him, then shook her head and sighed. It's a pity that we let Chang Mingui escape this time. Although he's also injured and should stop for a while when he makes a comeback next time. It won't be so easy to deal with him. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. This time, the time and place were all on his side. Chang Mingui unknowingly stepped into a trap. It wouldn't be so easy next time. When the time came, the enemy would be in the dark while he was in the light. Lin Yi wouldn't even have the chance to prepare in advance, let alone set up a trap for him. I'm actually fine here. I don't plan on staying in the East Continent. I'll be fine as long as I return to the North Island. Lin Yi shook his head nonchalantly, then said worriedly, I'm more worried about you, Aunt Lu. You've offended Chang Mingui this time. He definitely won't let this go. Lin Yi could just leave, but Lu Ziyu, as the vice headmaster of Morning Pride Academy, obviously couldn't do so. Although she was a mid-stage mountain opening expert, she was still a distance away from Chang Mingui. With Chang Mingui's vengeful personality, he wouldn't let her go. You don't have to worry about this. With my strength, even if I can't beat him, protecting myself won't be a problem. If he dares to come to my Morning Pride Academy's territory and behave atrociously, even if I don't die, I'll still skin him alive. Does he really think that my Morning Pride Academy is easy to bully? Lu Ziyu said disapprovingly. Hearing that, Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He had just been thinking about whether he should call Lu Ziyu to go to the North Island to lie low for a while. In any case, she and Shanghai Tianhua were old acquaintances, so he could just treat it as a visit to an old friend's house. However, since Lu Ziyu had already expressed her stance, there was no need for him to do anything unnecessary. After all, he was a big shot of a regent. Even if his strength was inferior, with Lu Ziyu's personality, she really wouldn't be afraid of him. Who knew? It might even become a motivation for her to advance to the next level. All right, your healing true qi is quite useful. This bit of injury of mine is more or less healed. Lu Ziyu clicked her tongue in wonder, indicating for Lin Yi to retract his true qi as she stood up and said, "Your injuries aren't light either. Hurry up and heal yourself. Don't worry about me." After saying that, without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Lu Ziyu left the room by herself, leaving Lin Yi alone to continue healing. Chapter 49:58. Such a bold plan. If it had been anyone else, they would have taken a while. Even if they agreed to help in the end, the opportunity would have been gone. Speaking of which, tonight's fishing plan was indeed full of danger. Even Lin Yi himself could not help but feel some lingering fear. Chang Minggui's strength was truly beyond his imagination. Fortunately, his luck was not bad, and the other party had underestimated him. Otherwise, forget about dragging it out until Zhuang Yifan made a move. Lin Yi reckoned that he would not even be able to survive the first step of luring the enemy. He would have died under Chang Minggui's wind blades before he even reached the ambush point. And in the end, if Zhuang Yifan had not appeared, with his and Lu Ziyu's physical strength being almost exhausted, they would have most likely died when facing the enraged Chang Minggui. In this aspect, Zhuang Yifan had actually been a great help. Although he had not been able to kill Chang Minggui as Lin Yi had wished, he had at least scared him away and saved his and Lu Ziyu's lives. He still remembered this favor. As Lin Yi healed himself, he inspected the state of his body. He suddenly discovered that his 8 compound spirit roots were much more solid than when he had just broken through. The various elements were fused more seamlessly, and even the qi in his body was calmer and less restless. This discovery immediately made Lin Yi overjoyed. According to his past experience, this was clearly a sign that he had completely consolidated his mysterious ascension primary stage. How long had it been since he had broken through? He had originally thought that it would take at least 3 months or even half a year. But thinking about it carefully, this result was actually not that surprising. Actual combat was the best way to consolidate one's strength. And looking back at Lin Yi's recent battles, putting aside Chang Minggui, who was a weakling of the same level, the unfathomable vengeful spirit, the early mountain opening stage Zhang Zili, and the late mountain opening stage Chang Minggui were all extremely intense battles. If he still could not consolidate his strength like that, then it would really be strange. While Lin Yi was rejoicing, on the other side, Chang Minggui, who had fled on the ghost-eyed golden eagle, was currently in an extremely bad mood. Not only had he not been able to kill Lin Yi, but he had instead been tricked by Lin Yi and Lu Ziyu. His chest had been pierced through by a sword, coupled with the strongest lightning burial. To a late-stage mountain opening expert like him, though such injuries were not fatal, they were definitely not minor injuries that could be healed in a day or two. What made Chang Minggui even more depressed was the fact that even though Lin Yi was on Thunderplain Island, he could only watch and not dare to attack again. Zhuang Yifan's sudden appearance had already shocked him. Although Zhuang Yifan did not make a move to stop him, who knew what Zhuang Yifan would do if he was attacked again? After being depressed, Chang Minggui finally understood. With his strength, killing Lin Yi was indeed as easy as flipping his hand, but Lin Yi had an expert like Lu Ziyu protecting him, so he could not completely crush him. Once the battle dragged on, Zhuang Yifan would definitely come to the rescue. Under such circumstances, it would be almost impossible to kill Lin Yi. However, even though he understood, Chang Minggui did not plan on giving up. However, according to the rumors that Lin Yi had Li Ren spread, there was not much time left for him to act. Not to mention letting Lin Yi escape back to the Northern Island. Even if he only returned to the Morning Star Academy's territory, it would not be easy for him to act again. One had to know that the strength of the three Morning Star magnates was not below Lu Ziyu's, especially Dean Ling Yuanqing, whose strength was not much weaker than Chang Minggui's. If he dared to kill Lin Yi in the Morning Star Academy's territory, the three Morning Star magnates would not be as scheming as Zhuang Yifan. They would definitely fight to the death, and Chang Minggui might even have to pay with his life. He did not dare to take this risk. After thinking about it, Chang Minggui felt that the best opportunity was still here. Before Zhuang Yifan could react, he would use his absolute strength to kill him in one blow, or perhaps he could just take care of that detestable Zhuang Yifan as well. After hesitating for a while, Chang Minggui suddenly had a flash of inspiration and immediately made up his mind. He did not hesitate to overdraft the ghost-eyed golden eagle's life force to increase its speed to the maximum, and the man and eagle quickly disappeared into the moonlight. In the hall of the Morning Star Academy's treasured ship, because of the huge commotion earlier, almost everyone on the ship was gathered there. As the leader of the group, Li Run was busy arranging for people to repair the protective spell formation. Although the protective spell formation had been destroyed on the spot by Chang Minggui's two giant wind blades, neither the main body of the treasured ship nor the protective spell formation itself had suffered much damage. As long as they repaired it slightly and infused enough spiritual qi, the protective spell formation would naturally be able to be activated again. "Master, how is Lin Yi?" Hui Yudi and the rest saw Lu Ziyu come out and immediately surrounded her. "He seems to be in good condition, so he should be fine. Don't worry." Lu Ziyu smiled and comforted them. "Oh, that's good." Hui Yudi and the rest all heaved a sigh of relief, and then asked about the situation of the battle just now. Lu Ziyu naturally answered every question, and although it was only a few plain words, the information revealed still made everyone unconsciously break out in a cold sweat, and they were filled with lingering fear. No wonder Lin Yi insisted on not letting them participate, although they were all in the early stages of the mysterious ascension realm, and in terms of strength, they were far stronger than the average experts of the same level. But in front of a fiend like Chang Minggui, they could not even be considered cannon fodder. Even Lin Yi was in such a dangerous situation, let alone the few of them. In the time it took for them to speak, Lin Yi had already finished healing his injuries and appeared in front of everyone in a relaxed manner. Needless to say, he was once again surrounded by the group of girls who examined him from head to toe. After confirming that he had indeed recovered, the girls were finally willing to let go of him. "I already said that I'm really fine, but you still didn't believe me." Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at his messy clothes, looking as if he had been humiliated. At this moment, he suddenly saw a figure in the corner of the hall, and his heart skipped a beat as he remembered what had happened before. He immediately called out, "Miss Qinyu, is it convenient for you to come with me for a moment?" As soon as he finished speaking, not only Lu Ziyu, Hui Yudi, and the others, but even the other Morning Star disciples in the distance revealed strange gazes. Each and every one of them looked at Lin Yi and Qinyu with mischievous eyes. If not for Lin Yi's strength and status, all sorts of rumors would have been flying around. Qinyu was also stunned, and after noticing everyone's expressions, she could not help but blush. She hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head and weakly responded, following Lin Yi's footsteps. The two of them arrived at Lin Yi's room. Just as Lin Yi sat down, he saw Qinyu, who was behind him, closed the door with a turn of her hand. "What are you doing?" Lin Yi could not help but be stunned. Chapter 49:59. "Oh, this was given by Jiang Hahai. You don't have to thank me." Lin Yi waved his hand. Qinyu looked at him deeply. She knew that with Jiang Hahai's ability, he would not be able to take out the Thunder Quintessence Pill. Only this legendary mystic tier alchemist could casually take out the rare Thunder Quintessence Pill and give it away. Therefore, Lin Yi could not deceive her at all. That Qinyu suddenly blushed and lowered her head, saying weakly, "Master Lin, did you call me over to repay you?" "What?" Lin Yi almost choked when he heard that. What was going on? Did he look that wretched? Could it be that he had guessed wrong? Qinyu was clearly stunned when she saw his reaction. She secretly muttered in her heart, or was this Master Lin a hypocrite? He was obviously doing dirty things, but he still pretended to be virtuous. Lin Yi frowned when he saw her expression. He pointed at the opposite seat and asked her to sit down. In a serious tone, he said, "I have something I wanted to ask you before. What is your relationship with those two male disciples?" "Male disciples?" Qinyu thought for a while before she reacted. She said with some surprise, "Are you talking about Qidong and Chen Chang?" "I don't know their names. I just saw that you have a close relationship with them. That's why I asked." Lin Yi said lightly. Although he'd only met Jiang Hahai once, he sympathized with this infatuated man. What Qinyu had done before, on the other hand, was truly chilling. Lin Yi wasn't at the point where he'd be filled with righteous indignation. After all, this was a private matter, but he still felt that it was unfair for Jiang Hahai. Qinyu fell into silence when she heard that. She lowered her head and did not speak for a long time. Lin Yi could see that she was trying her best to restrain herself, but she could not stop the sound of sobbing. The atmosphere in the room was filled with sorrow and anger. It seemed that there was a hidden story. After a long time, Qinyu suddenly raised her head and reached out to wipe away the tears on her face. She said calmly with determination, "Master Lin, if you see Jiang Hahai, please help me pass a message. Tell him that I, Qinyu, have died. I have let him down." "You're dead?" Lin Yi's frown deepened, and he sternly said, "Miss Qin, if you have something to say, say it clearly in front of me. If you have any difficulties, we can also find a way to solve it. Or did you really do something wrong to Jiang Hahai? Did you cheat on him?" Qinyu's expression darkened. Her eyes turned red as she sobbed. "I've really let him down. I'm no longer clean. I don't deserve him. If you had known this would happen, you wouldn't have acted in the first place." Lin Yi shook his head and secretly felt sorry for Jiang Hahai. It was hard for him to think of ways to save up a gathering nascent soul golden pill, and even did not hesitate to ask a stranger to bring it here. However, he did not know that Qinyu was no longer the original Qinyu. His infatuation was really wasted. "I didn't want to," Qinyu cried silently. "I've decided to give my life to Ahai. Even if it's 100 years or 1,000 years, I'll wait for him. I'll never regret it." "Then how did you become like this?" Lin Yi frowned. Through the previous performance, he believed Qinyu's words a little. Putting aside other things, at least Qinyu must have feelings for Jiang Hahai. Otherwise, she wouldn't have asked him to bring Jiang Hahai a medicinal pill when they were on the road to becoming a giant, a condensed, nascent soul golden pill, and a vitality-cultivating pill. How could a normal person give such a medicinal pill to someone for no reason? "Because I was..." Qinyu was obviously hesitant and struggling halfway through her words. In the end, she took a deep breath and gritted her teeth to finish the second half of the sentence. "I was raped." "What?" Lin Yi was shocked and looked at Qinyu in disbelief. After a long time, he asked in a deep voice, "Who?" "Zhang Tianguang." Although Qin Yu lowered her head, when she said this name, Lin Yi could clearly feel her gritting her teeth. This kind of hatred had completely seeped into her bones. After all, it was this person who ruined her originally beautiful life and forced her to sink into this state. "Who is Zhang Tianguang?" Lin Yi asked with a frown. "He is a second-generation cultivator in the academy. He is the son of the academy's #2 alchemist, Zhang Dongsheng. In the past, he often hung out with Bao Zhuoyang and the others." Qin Yu's tone suddenly became unprecedentedly calm, as if she was a bystander, and calmly narrated, "From the first day at Morningstar Academy, I was targeted by him. After being rejected by me 3 times in a row, he became angry out of humiliation and drugged me, doing such beastly things." Lin Yi did not say anything. He only faintly felt that the name Zhang Dongsheng was somewhat familiar. Although he should not have heard of it or seen it before, he felt that it should be related to someone that he had interacted with before. "I have no background here, no backing. After the incident, I did not know how to resist, nor did I know how to take revenge, so I could only seek death. However, after being saved several times, I gradually became numb." Qin Yu said calmly, "What happened after that?" Lin Yi asked, "From then on, I became his plaything. I used my body to exchange for the cultivation resources in his hands." Qin Yu's current state of mind could be said to be terrifying. Speaking of this kind of thing, she could actually still laugh. With an unfathomable expression, she said, "Later, Zhang Tianguang went to the Mystic Sea region, and I was targeted by a few other second-generation cultivators. Since I was unable to resist, I simply broke the jar and used my beauty to mingle with those men in exchange for cultivation resources." Upon hearing this, Lin Yi was stunned. He did not know how to evaluate Qin Yu's choice. It would be too cold to say that she did not have self-respect, but he could not say that she did the right thing. He could only be speechless. Qin Yu saw Lin Yi's expression and shook her head with a bitter smile. "Anyway, I have already become like this. In order to survive, there is no other way. I actually do not want to live, but I want to do something for Ahai before I die. Even if it is just to save a few medicinal pills for him and ask someone to bring them over, it can make up for what I owe him. Otherwise, I will not be able to die in peace." After saying this, Qin Yu fell into silence again. At this moment, Lin Yi saw her look of despair and sighed. Although he did not agree with her choice, it was not her fault that she became like this. In a place like East Continent College, where the strong preyed on the weak, it was indeed difficult to survive without a strong backer and a strong background. In comparison, Wang Xinyan, Huang Xiaotao, and Hui Yuri were much luckier than her. Not to mention other things, at least they had a strong and protective master. Chapter 4960. Lin Yi couldn't help but rejoice when he thought of this. Fortunately, the 3 of them had good luck. Otherwise, who knows if the miserable experience of Qin Yu would repeat itself on them. This wasn't impossible. Thinking about Tian Chan and Sydney on Middle Island, they were living examples. After a long silence, Lin Yi let out a long breath and slowly said, "Okay, I know what happened to you. It's not your fault. You don't have to blame yourself too much." "Thank you, Master Lin." Qin Yu bowed slightly, but her expression didn't change much. For a woman like her, whether Lin Yi understood or misunderstood, it didn't matter much. Since the day she gave up, she no longer cared about her reputation. "However, I hope that you don't give up on yourself anymore. I will talk to Qing Danzi. In the future, he will be your backer. Also, if you encounter any trouble again, you can go to Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. They won't just stand by and watch." Lin Yi paused and continued, You are now an early-stage mysterious ascension master. When you go to the mysterious sea, it will be a brand new beginning. At that time, work hard and don't give up on yourself. You understand? This. Chinyu couldn't help but look at Lin Yi in shock. She thought that Lin Yi suddenly asked about her matters on a whim. She didn't expect that this high and mighty Master Lin would take the initiative to help her. For a moment, she didn't know how to react. As for your matters, I will tell the truth to Jiang Hahai when I have the chance. I don't know what decision he will make, and of course, I won't interfere. Lin Yi sighed. One was an infatuated man, and the other was a bitter woman. From his standpoint, of course, he hoped that the two of them would have a good ending. However, this was obviously not something he could interfere with. Since ancient times, men have always valued a woman's reputation, especially in a society like Heavenly Island. Although Jiang Hahai was infatuated, he might give up after knowing about Qinyu's matter. Thank you, Master Lin. I will never forget your great kindness. Qinyu stood up and bowed to Lin Yi. Her face was a little livelier than before, but there was also some nervousness. Her originally dead state of mind had a slight ripple, but even so, she actually didn't have much hope for the future. She was already a withered willow, and she was already satisfied to be able to do something for her lover. As for anything else, she really didn't dare to ask for more. Once there was hope, there would be greater disappointment and even despair in the end. She didn't want to die again. Lin Yi didn't say much. Qin Yu was suffering from a mental illness, and it needed medication to treat it. Only when she got over it herself could everything get better. I know you want revenge. Work hard. There will come a day when you can take revenge with your own hands. Lin Yi paused, looked at her, and said, that Zheng Tianguan you mentioned, if I wanted to crush him, it would be as easy as flipping my hand. But I can help you once, but I can't help you forever. He is a knot in your heart, and only you can untie it yourself. Yes, Qinyu nodded silently. All right, in the future, whether you pull yourself together or continue to sink, it's all up to you. Go back. Lin Yi said to send her off. Qinyu looked deeply at Lin Yi, nodded heavily, and left the room. However, before she could take a few steps, the two male disciples who had an ambiguous relationship with her before had already surrounded her. It was Qidong and Chun Chang. Although their backgrounds weren't as deep as Bao Zhuliang's, they could still be considered the second generation of cultivation. What's going on? When did he take a fancy to you? Qidong came up to her with a nervous expression. That's right. Isn't it enough for him to have beauties like Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao? Don't tell me he won't let go of a broken flower like you. Isn't that too lustful? Chun Chang complained in a low voice. Qinyu looked at the two with disgust and remembered what Lin Yi had said. She immediately said coldly, don't come looking for me in the future. Don't interfere with each other's business, or else don't blame me for being impolite. Qidong and Chun Chang froze at the same time as they stared at the woman in disbelief. Qinyu used to be very obedient in front of them, and as long as they gave her training resources, she wouldn't object no matter what they asked her to do. She'd do whatever she wanted. So why was she turning her back on them after just one time? You little hussy, what nonsense are you talking about? You don't want cultivation, resources anymore? Or do you want us to find a few people to gang rape you? Qidong immediately threatened in an evil tone. Don't think that you can escape from us just because you're at the early profound ascension stage. Let me tell you, with your little strength in the Morning Star Academy, you will forever be trampled on by us, unless you can find a strong backer. Chun Chang snorted coldly. In this tyrant's path trial, the two of them like most of the other Morning Star disciples, did not succeed in breaking through to the profound ascension stage. Other than their lack of strength, they were also unlucky enough to meet a freak like Lin Yi. Hence, the two of them were naturally inferior to Qin Yu, who was at the early profound ascension stage. They could only use their backer to scare Qin Yu into submission. From now on, I won't let you touch even a finger of mine. If you don't believe me, feel free to try. Qin Yu looked at the two of them coldly, and then turned to leave. Qidong and Chunchang looked at Qin Yu's back with an ugly expression, not daring to move at all. In that instant, they felt something they had never felt before from Qin Yu, a killing intent. If it was any other Morning Star disciple, even if they had the strength, they might not dare to kill the two of them. But Qin Yu was different. She was a woman with a dead heart. She could do anything without fear. Back then, she was willing to give up on herself. And now that she had the intention to rebel, she would naturally be unrestrained. Would such a woman not dare to kill? Damn it! This little hussy is going against the heavens. When we get back, we must make her suffer. Isn't she just at the early profound ascension stage? What's so great about her? Chun Chang spat fiercely and turned to look at Qidong. With our background, it'll be easy to find a few experts outside the academy in Morning Star City. Qidong, do you want to do it? Humph, no. Qidong shook his head decisively. Why? I remember that you're quite brave. When did you become so cowardly that you're even afraid of a profound ascension stage? Hussy. Qin Chang said in surprise. I'm brave, but I'm not stupid. Qidong looked at him and curled his lips. Of course, there's no need to be afraid of a mere Qin Yu. But now that she has Lin Yi on her side, are you afraid? Chapter 49-61. It could even be said that in front of Lin Yi, he didn't even have the right to speak. With just a glance of dissatisfaction, he would die a horrible death. Moreover, Lin Yi didn't even need to do it himself. His father would have already kidnapped him to apologize. A big shot like Lin Yi wouldn't be interested in such a broken shoe, right? Chun Chang frowned. The difference between Lin Yi and Qin Yu was like heaven and earth, and Lin Yi didn't lack women by his side. Wang Xinyan, Huang Xiaotao, and even Hu Yudi from the Morning Pride Academy. Which one of them wasn't better than Qin Yu? How did these two end up together? I don't think so, but you saw it too. He just called that coquettish hussy to his room. Who knows if he'll suddenly have a taste? Qidong shrugged, helplessly. Chun Chang was terrified. If Qin Yu really managed to get a super big backer like Lin Yi, even if it was just once, they definitely couldn't provoke her again. Otherwise, if they really made Lin Yi unhappy, they wouldn't even know how they died. But the two of them had been with Qin Yu for so long, and they were extremely unwilling to let her go just like that. To be honest, they were still very infatuated with Qin Yu. After all, in terms of beauty, Qin Yu was considered first class. Even if she couldn't compare to Wang Xinyan, she wasn't too far off. In the entire Morning Star Academy, there really weren't many beauties that could compare to her. Let's wait and see. I reckon that Lin Yi won't stay in our academy for too long. When he leaves, the tea will cool down. At that time, Qin, you still won't be able to escape from our palms. Qidong said in a low voice. That's all we can do for now. Chun Chang nodded in agreement. Naturally, no one heard the conversation between the two of them hiding in the corner. In fact, even if Lin Yi heard it, he wouldn't care. With Qing Danzi's protection and Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao's help, if Qin Yu still couldn't get rid of them, it could only mean that she was too weak. Even Lin Yi couldn't help her in every aspect. She could only rely on herself in the future. The next morning, the Morning Star Academy's treasured ship was bustling with activity. Li Ren was leading a group of Morning Star disciples to pack up, prepare to set sail immediately. Although Lin Yi had told him to spread the rumor that he was going to the Morning Star Academy earlier to lure the enemy, he could not go back on his word. Since the rumor had been spread, he had to carry it out seriously. Furthermore, he did not manage to kill Chang Mingwei last night, and being able to return to Morning Star Academy a few days earlier was a good thing for Lin Yi, as he did not have to stay here in fear. The departure of the treasured ship was not something that could be done with just a roar. All kinds of preparation work were very complicated, especially since the defensive array had just been repaired. He still needed some time to test it. Otherwise, if he were to recklessly head out to sea only to discover that the protective formation had failed, then he would be in big trouble. Lin Yi was chatting with Xinyan and the girls on the deck as they made their final preparations. It was then that Zhuang Yifan boarded the ship himself, cupping his hands. "Master Lin, your earth-solidifying pill is truly effective. I can't thank you enough." "Oh." Lin Yi looked him up and down again, noticing that Zhuang Yifan's complexion was much better than before, and he no longer looked like he was suffering from a lack of blood. It seemed that after taking the earth-solidifying pill last night, his injuries had completely healed. Not only that, but Zhuang Yifan's aura now seemed to be restless, a sign that he was not far from breaking through. If it were not for such a strong foundation, Zhuang Yifan would not have forcefully broken through to the peak of the late stage of the Earth creation realm. Now that the Earth-solidifying pill had healed the old injuries in his body, and at the same time, it had greatly stabilized his strength. Who knew, he might be able to advance even further in a short period of time. Then I really have to congratulate President Zhuang. You have made great progress. Congratulations. Lin Yi cupped his hands with a smile. It's all Master Lin's credit. If it were not for you, how could I have gotten rid of such a huge threat? Master Lin is really my benefactor. Zhuang Yifan laughed. President Zhuang, you are too kind. Lin Yi said lightly, not at all. Speaking of which, I am very ashamed. Master Lin helped me so much, but I can't give him anything in return. Just thinking about it makes me feel ashamed. Zhuang Yifan smiled bitterly. In the Mystic Sea region, asking any Mystic Level 1 alchemist to refine pills for him would require a huge price. This price could not be measured in spirit jades. Most of the time, one could only barter or do something for the other party to repay. Zhuang Yifan received the earth-solidifying pill from Lin Yi, but he did not give him the corresponding treasure, nor did he specifically do anything for Lin Yi. In fact, it was against the rules. You are too kind. Compared to refining pills, President Zhuang has helped me a lot more. I will remember it all, and I dare not forget it. Lin Yi said seriously. He was not just being polite. Not only did Zhuang Yifan help him suppress the crime of causing trouble in the Alliance's territory, he also stopped Chang Mingwei at the banquet yesterday. On top of that, he also promised to matchmake the Chenxing and Chenjiao academies. With so many things added together, it was more than enough to make up for the price of one earth-solidifying pill. These small things are not worth mentioning. How can they be compared to something as important as refining pills? Master Lin, please don't embarrass me. Zhuang Yifan pretended to be ashamed, but in reality, he was very happy. These were all small things he'd done in passing, but each and every one of them counted as a favor, and the weight of it all added up wasn't light at all. Lin Yi remembered him, and that in itself was already a benefit to him. These are small things in President Zhuang's eyes, but to me, it is a matter of life and death. Don't be too humble, President Zhuang. Lin Yi smiled. It's not that I'm being humble, but Master Lin is being too polite. Zhuang Yifan was now determined to build a good relationship with Lin Yi. His attitude was very humble and sincere. After all, this was not an ordinary mystic first-level alchemist, but an alchemist who had the chance to become a mystic second-level alchemist. He still had many things to rely on in the future. All right, we don't have to be so polite anymore. It's too distant. I feel like we've known each other for a long time. Why don't we be friends from the same generation? What do you think, Headmaster Zhuang? Lin Yi suggested. Good, good. Master Lin's words are exactly what I wanted. To have a friend like you, Master Lin, is my honor. Zhuang Yifan was overjoyed. President Zhuang, that's not right. I just said that we'll be friends, and you're being polite again. Lin Yi laughed and shook his head. He pretended to be angry. Friends should be straightforward. President Zhuang, if you continue like this, I won't be able to be friends with you. Chapter 4962. That's more like it. Since we're friends, we can't just call each other Master Lin anymore. From now on, President Zhuang, you can call me by my full name, or you can call me little brother, Lin Yi said with a smile. All right, I'll call you Brother Lin then, but since that's the case, you don't have to call me Chairman Zhuang anymore. Since we're the same senior, just call me Big Bro Zhuang. How's that? Zhuang Yifan took advantage of the situation. You've always been the big bro. Lin Yi laughed heartily. The two were trying to get closer to each other, and in just a few sentences, they were already calling each other brother. Zhuang Yifan was many times older than Lin Yi, but he always maintained the appearance of a young man. And the two really did look like brothers when they stood together. After getting closer to Lin Fan, Zhuang Yifan didn't try to hide anything anymore, and said directly, Brother Lin, there's something I've wanted to ask you since last night, but I was afraid it would be rude. Since we're friends now, I'll be frank with you. How confident are you in breaking through to become a mystic second-level alchemist? That's hard to say. Although I feel like I'm 70 to 80% confident, it's hard to say until I succeed. Don't you think so, Big Bro Zhuang? Lin Yi smiled faintly. That's true. Zhuang Yifan nodded. He couldn't help but feel overjoyed at Lin Yi's confidence. 80% confident. Didn't that mean he had a high chance of success? If anyone else had boasted like this, Zhuang Yifan would have scoffed at it, but Lin Yi was different. The earth fortification pill from before had already proven his skills, not to mention that he was the disciple of the Dan god Zhang Liju. Breaking through to the second level of the mystic class was just a matter of time. It wasn't something to be surprised about. From what Big Bro Zhuang said, do you need a mystic second-level pill? Lin Yi asked. That's right. I won't hide it from you. After taking your earth consolidating pill, I've recovered to my peak. I'm only one step away from breaking through to the peak of the late stage of the earth opening realm. After that, I'll be at the great completion of the earth opening realm. Zhuang Yifan admitted. That's a good thing. Once you reach Earth Creation Great Circle, Big Brother Zhuang will be able to attack the sea-splitting stage. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel eager when he said that. Reaching the sea-splitting stage meant that it was not far from the 5-poison flood dragon and the giant electric eel that he had seen before. It was a pity that Lin Yi himself was only at the early profound ascension stage. Not to mention the sea-splitting stage. He was still a long way from the mountain opening stage. Yes, that is indeed the case. However, it is very difficult to break through to the sea-splitting stage by relying on your own strength. You will also need the assistance of medicinal pills. Zhuang Yifan frowned slightly. What pill? As far as I know, after reaching the nascent soul stage, medicinal pills are no longer able to be used to break through to the next realm, right? Lin Yi asked curiously. And the medicinal pill I am talking about is called the Sea Giant pill. It is not used to break through the barrier. In fact, It is just a kind of auxiliary medicinal pill, just like the profound thunder pill. Zhuang Yifan saw that Lin didn't quite understand, so he explained, when you break through to the profound ascension stage, you need to use the profound thunder pill to resist the thunder tribulation, but it is not necessary to use the profound thunder pill. If you are strong enough, you can rely on your own strength to endure it. The same goes for the sea giant pill. It is not necessary, but it can make the breakthrough smoother. That's all. Lin, he was a little stunned. In other words, the sea giant pill itself could not be used to break through to the sea splitting stage. The entire process of breaking through still depended on personal strength. The sea giant pill was just like the profound thunder pill. It could provide a better breakthrough environment. So, is it possible that when breaking through to the sea splitting stage, there will also be heaven's wrath like the thunder tribulation? Linny asked, "That's not it. Once heaven's wrath is enough. How could it come every time? Otherwise, wouldn't the heavens be too busy?" Zhuang Yifan smiled and explained the sea giant pill is not used to resist heaven's wrath. It is a miraculous medicinal pill used to transform our physical body. It can transform our dantian into a wider danci, and this danci is the first step to breaking through to the sea splitting stage. So that's how it is. Then this danci can only be formed by taking the sea giant pill? Linny asked again. During this time, the ghost had been in seclusion, so he had no one to ask this question to. He could only keep Zhuang Yifan. Not necessarily. In fact, even if we don't use the sea giant pill, we can still use our own strength to transform it bit by bit. However, this process is very difficult and long. If we are a little lacking in talent and willpower, it will be very difficult to succeed. Some people, even if they succeed in the end, will miss the opportunity to break through because it takes too long. They will never be able to break through again in their lifetime. But by taking the sea giant pill, we can skip this long stage. Zhuang Yifan patiently answered every question. Thank you, Big Brother Zhuang, for answering my question. Presumably, this sea giant pill should be a mystic second-rank pill, right? Linny guessed. That's right. This kind of pill can't be bought in the entire yellow class C. We can only prepare the materials and ask someone to help us refine it. However, it is very difficult to find a mystic second-rank pill master. Even in the mystic class C, they are very rare existences, let alone in the yellow class C. So I can only place my hopes on you, Big Brother Lin. Zhuang Yifan smiled bitterly. Looking at the entire yellow class C, there was only one mystic first-rank pill master, Zhang Zili. Now that he was beaten half to death by Lin Yi, Zhuang Yifan couldn't find anyone to help him. As for going to the mystic class C to find someone, it wasn't impossible, but the problem was that he didn't know any mystic second-rank pill masters. Why would they help him refine pills for no reason? So, Lin Yi, who was about to break through to the mystic second-rank pill master, became his only hope. This was the original reason why he was so polite to Lin Yi. Otherwise, as a great master in the late stage of the earth-opening realm, even if he was polite, he wouldn't put himself in such a low position. At least, he wouldn't call Lin Yi a brother. Since Big Brother Zhuang values me so much, then I must not let Big Brother Zhuang down. When I successfully break through to the mystic second rank, one day, Big Brother Zhuang's sea giant pill will be on me. Lin Yi immediately promised. He believed that with the conditions of the godly armament cauldron, refining the sea giant pill shouldn't be difficult. First the solid earth pill, then the sea giant pill. In this way, Zhuang Yifan would definitely value him more. At that time, Zhuang Yifan might already be a master in the sea splitting stage. This was a real super help. How could Linny let it go? Chapter 4963. Thank you, Brother Zhuang. Lin Yi was also overjoyed. If he had gotten Zhuang Yifan's promise last night, he wouldn't have needed to spend so much effort to plot against Chang Minggui, and he wouldn't have failed in the end. As long as Zhuang Yifan was willing to make a move, even 10 Chang Minggui wouldn't be enough to kill him. But thinking about it, it was only because Zhuang Yifan had taken the Earth's solid pill that this could happen. This was human nature. Ha! Since the first time we met, I've felt regret for not having met earlier. Now this feeling is getting stronger and stronger. Come, let's have a drink to celebrate. At the same time, we can also send Brother Lin off, Zhuang Yifan suggested. Okay, I'll get someone to arrange it. Lin Yi immediately called Li Ren over. Since they hadn't left the port yet, he might as well strike while the iron was hot and get closer to Zhuang Yifan. After all, he would be a powerful ally in the future. But before the food and wine were served, there was a commotion outside the ship. The familiar howling wind from last night came again. Lin Yi and Zhuang Yifan were startled. Could it be that Chang Minggui had returned? Lin Brat, come out and accept your death. A ferocious voice echoed outside the ship. It was indeed Chang Minggui. When Lin Yi heard this voice, he wasn't surprised. Instead, he was happy. He was worried that this guy wouldn't leave him alone. He didn't expect him to deliver himself to his doorstep. Coincidentally, Zhuang Yifan had just threatened him. So this guy was simply there to test Zhuang Yifan. Let's go out and take a look. Zhuang Yifan's face darkened, and he immediately led the way out of the cabin. At this time, there was a giant ghost-eyed golden eagle hovering in the air, with Chang Minggui standing on its back. Apart from him, there was another person, a middle-aged man with long hair and a black beard. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi, Lu Ziyu, and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. Chang Minggui himself was not someone to be trifled with, but the middle-aged man standing next to him had an aura that was far above his own. The feeling he gave off wasn't that of a mountain-opening master at all, but an earth-opening master on the same level as Zhuang Yifan. Chang Tianwen. Zhuang Yifan's eyelids twitched, and he called out the middle-aged man's name. He, it's been many years. How have you been, Zhuang Yifan? Chang Tian, one's face was filled with mockery and complacency. It seemed like the two of them had some sort of conflict before. At the very least, they were definitely not on the same path. Why are you here instead of staying in the Xian Grade C region? This is the territory of the Golden Steppe Academy Alliance. According to the rules, you have to notify us before you enter. Don't you think it's a bit rude to barge in like this? Zhuang Yifan said in a low voice. After so many years, President Zhuang is still as heartless as ever. For people at our level, what use are these rules? Lin Yi was Tianwen. Lin Yi, Zhuang Chun him, Zhuang Chen Yi Yifan, and he said. Lin Chang Chen Yifan, who was Yi, who Chen. With Chen, Lin Chen, Chen, and Lin Chen, and have the Lin. Hearing this, Lin Yi and the others realized that this person was Chang Minggui's brother. Chang Minggui was looking for his parents after suffering a loss. As expected, mountain-opening late-stage experts were people too, and they thought the same as ordinary people. This is their own personal fight, and it was clearly stated in advance that the Academy's alliance does not need to interfere, nor can we. They can only blame themselves for being weak if they suffer a loss. Who else can they blame? Zhuang Yifan snorted mercilessly. Blame themselves? That's what you mean, right? But I don't believe it. A mere mysterious ascending stage can defeat a mountain-opening early-stage expert. This is unheard of in the Xian Grade C region. Could it be that there are more hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this small place? I suspect that you, Zhuang Yifan, are behind this." Chang Tianwen sneered. "Is that so? Looks like you're not here to seek justice, but to stir up trouble. However, I'm curious about one thing. Back in the Mystic Sea, you were my defeated opponent. Where did you get the confidence to stir up trouble in my territory? Did you break through again?" Zhuang Yifan stared coldly at Chang Tianwen. Chang Tianwen shook his head. Chang Tianwen's expression was one of disbelief. Hearing this, Chang Tianwen's face darkened. Losing to Zhuang Yifan in the Xian Grade C region was the greatest humiliation of his life. It was a scar that no one could open. Humph, don't try to deceive yourself with stupid words like, "I lost to you." If I hadn't underestimated my opponent, how could you, Zhuang Yifan, become the Academy Alliance leader? Chang Tianwen curled his lips in disdain. "If that's the case, then I have to thank you for showing mercy back then." Zhuang Yifan sneered. Chang Tianwen's face darkened. Chang Tianwen's expression became more and more unsightly. He had always felt that he was stronger than Zhuang Yifan, be it in terms of background or strength. Back then, when people compared the two of them, he was dismissive and even said that Zhuang Yifan was no match for him. In the end, after they fought, he found out that he was no match for Zhuang Yifan. The mocking looks from the crowd at that time still made him feel extremely humiliated, and he took it to heart. After becoming the Academy Alliance leader, your strength didn't improve, but your mouth has become a lot sharper. Congratulations. Chang Tianwen sneered and said, "This Lin kid is mine today. Zhuang Yifan, if you're not the one behind this, you won't stop me, right?" After all, according to what you just said, this is a private matter between him and us, isn't it? Whether it's a private matter or not, it's not up to you to decide. My brother Lin has to say it himself. As long as he doesn't agree, then he will be a part of the Academy Alliance. I can guarantee that you won't be able to touch him. Zhuang Yifan said lightly, "Brother Lin, you, Zhuang Yifan, are a late-stage Earth creation realm master, and you're talking to a kid as your peer? Don't you feel ashamed?" Chang Tianwen laughed. Seeing that Zhuang Yifan was still unmoved, Chang Tianwen said coldly, "So you're protecting him?" "That's right." Zhuang Yifan nodded without hesitation. Even if he didn't have a grudge with Chang Tianwen, there was no way he would let Lin Yi fall into Chang Tianwen's hands. After all, Lin Yi was his biggest hope of breaking through to the sea-splitting realm. "Then there's nothing more to say. I didn't want to take advantage of you, but you forced my hand." Chang Tianwen laughed. As soon as he finished speaking, a monstrous pressure suddenly pressed down from the sky. The huge morning star treasure ship sank, and a large part of it was pressed down by this incomparably powerful pressure. The originally calm sea became turbulent. Chapter 4964. All right, I'll wash away my shame today and let you see what I, Chang Tianwen, am capable of. Chang Tianwen laughed and chased after him. Both of them were experts in the late stage of the Earth opening realm. Once they got serious, their power would definitely be able to destroy heaven and earth, not to mention the dock beneath their feet. Even the entire Thunderplane Island would be affected. That was a consequence that neither of them could afford to bear. Hence, the two of them could only fight on the vast sea. Only there could they display their strength without any worries. The two of them quickly disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving only Chang Mingui and Lin Yi's group. Town leader Chang, the two of them have already made their move. Shouldn't we fight again? We didn't fight to our heart's content last night, right? Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Chang Mingui. Humph, you'll die later. There's no need to be so impatient. Chang Mingui's expression was unmoved. He wanted nothing more than to kill Lin Yi, but not now. After all, News of what had happened here would spread out very quickly, and the mountain opening stage experts from the Alliance's guard team would arrive very soon. If Lu Ziyu, a middle mountain opening stage expert, was added to the mix, he would not even have the slightest chance of victory, and he might not even be able to escape. The arrogant and despotic town leader Chang also has times when you're afraid. Could it be that you're afraid that your clan brother won't be able to defeat President Zhuang? So you're afraid that he'll come back to settle the score? Linny smiled lightly. Kid, don't be too happy yet. Since I specifically asked my clan brother to come here, then my clan brother naturally has the confidence to deal with Zhuang Yifan. Once Zhuang Yifan is defeated, your life or death will be in my hands. If I were you, I wouldn't waste my saliva trying to be brave. Instead, I'd quickly think about how to plead for mercy later. Chang Mingui smiled coldly. From what you've said, town leader Chang seems to have a lot of confidence in your clan brother. But from what the two of them said just now, how could he have been defeated by President Zhuang back then? Linny said, lightly, that was then, and this is now. My clan brother was defeated once, but that doesn't mean he will be defeated again. Chang Mingui looked down at Lin Yi and said, you people don't know yet, but Zhuang Yifan and my brother are both late-stage Earth opening experts. But this time, Zhuang Yifan will lose because he is injured. How did you know? Lin Yi looked at him with interest. This kind of thing was top secret, and Zhuang Yifan would not easily reveal it. Otherwise, his enemies would come knocking on his door, and Lin Yi would have a headache. This kind of thing only benefits me, so there's no harm in telling you. Zhuang Yifan asked my wife to concoct the Earth Consolidation Pill, which is a mystic level 1 pill specifically used for healing injuries. If he wasn't injured, why would he spend so much money to hire someone to concoct such an obscure pill? Zhuang Yifan said proudly. So that's how it is. No wonder Commander Chang is so confident. Linny smiled, then looked at him and said, but I have bad news. President Zhuang told me today that his injuries have all healed and he has returned to his peak condition. I'm afraid your plan is too late. Bullshit. His injuries can only be cured with the Earth Consolidation Pill, and my wife is the only mystic level 1 alchemist in the entire Yellow Class C. Where did he get the Earth Consolidation Pill? Kid, even if you want to bluff, you better use your brain first. Do you think everyone is as stupid as you? Chang Mingui looked at Lin Yi as if he was looking at an idiot. Oh, does Commander Chang not know that I am a mystic-level alchemist? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised. You? Chang Mingui was stunned. He really didn't know about this. His first reaction was that this kid was just bluffing. He immediately sneered. How can a little kid like you be a mystic grade, first-level alchemist? Kid, don't make me laugh. I really didn't think that Mayor Chang would be so uninformed. Even if you haven't heard of this, don't you think it's strange that someone of Guild Master Zhuang's level would treat a junior like me so differently? Linny smiled, not minding it at all. Chang Mingui was stunned. To be honest, he also thought it was strange that Zhuang Yifan would be so protective of this unknown kid. Rumor had it that he was from the North Island. Before, he thought he was a relative of Zhuang Yifan, but now it seemed that he was a first-level mystic stage alchemist. I don't need anyone to prove that I'm telling the truth. We'll know once we wait here. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he ordered Li Ren to set up a table on the deck. He called Xingyan and the girls over to have breakfast, completely disregarding Chang Mingui, a late-phase mountain master, in his eyes. Chang Mingui was so angry that he almost fell off the ghost-eyed golden eagle's back. After a while, he snorted, "Then we'll see." The atmosphere was tense, but neither Lin Yi nor Chang Minggui had the intention to fight the other head-on. They could only engage in a meaningless war of words because they knew that the decision wasn't up to them. Once Zhuang Yifan and Chang Tianwen finished their fight, the dust would settle on their side as well. Of course, there was another important reason why they weren't fighting right now, and that was that neither of them had enough confidence in taking down the other. Chang Minggui didn't dare take the risk of being surrounded by the Alliance's guards, while Lin Yi was purely at his wits' end. At least from last night's exchange, he and Lu Xiu weren't a threat to Chang Minggui with their strength. The two sides fell into a stalemate. Lin Yi brought the girls to eat and chat, while Chang Minggui could only watch from the sky. Half an hour later, Zhuang Yifan and Chang Tianwen suddenly appeared in the sky above the crowd. There were no signs of injury on their bodies, but their auras were completely different. Zhuang Yifan was still as calm as ever, while Chang Tianwen was clearly in a state of confusion. It was obvious that he was at a disadvantage in the earlier exchange. "Brother, how is it?" Chang Minggui asked quickly. "Let's go." Chang Tianwen's face was pale. He used his pure energy to wrap up the ghost-eyed golden eagle and Chang Minggui, disappearing into the thick clouds. "Congratulations, Brother Zhuang. It looks like you've won." Lin Yi smiled at Zhuang Yifan. "You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.